Good evening and good day, everybody, and welcome to the Ask Abhijit show. We are doing episode 319 today. I'm going to take questions on all topics today from the super chat mainly, and if possible, from the regular chat as well. So let us see before we get into the questions. Let's see who all is there on the live chat. I can see Pratardana. Namaste. Tim Sat. Hello. Nagananda Shanoy from Hyderabad. Animish Bharatiya. Ram Ram. Alvin Rodriguez, who says, could this be the beginning of World War III? Not yet, not quite. Rajat Duhan, Ram Ram, Putin 444, Pratardana, Sentinel Spy, Manisha Cardoso, Namaste, Nagananda Shenoy, Study Vlogs, Random Skull, saw me from Jaipur, Saslas, okay. I user chat. It's been a while. Namaste. Good to have you. Good to have you back. Sunil, Civilian Wizard. Ayush Singh, Pierre Vital. Okay. Vishnu Mohanan, Yan Kumar Bujel, Trupti Patil. Namaste. Khushbu Art. Namaskar. Suhas Reddy from Mangal. Namaste ji. Manhattan. Ritik Pawar. Shri Hari Arjun. Rajat Duhan once again. Manhattan all over again. Sentinel Spy, Sona Sandhuji. Who else do we have? Himanshu Rajpurohit. McLevin 69 says, will China attack India? No, not yet. Not quite. Not yet. Danush Suhas Reddy, Priyanshu Puli. She Trump. Hello. Priyanka Javalia is here from Gurgaon. Good to have you, ma'am. Namaste. Humanity Survives is here from New York. Hello. Shiva Prasad, Civilian Wizard, Suraj Sagar, Himanshu, Ombe Kerikar, hello. Ritik, Buddy X4W, Vishnu Mohanan once again, Shashank Kaushik, good evening. King Ritvik from Bhubaneswar, good to have you, King Ritvik from Bhubaneswar. Namanita Das, New Year, Happy New Year, yes. Sunil from Hunasigi, hello. Shri Hari Arjun once again, Chetan Aradhya, Shatabdish from Norway. Hello. Nagadan Shanoy says, what's happening in Venezuela? So much has happened in Venezuela, and it's still, well, kind of events in motion. Komalist and everyone else. Okay. Won't be able to greet everybody individually, but let's get going with the questions. Have I ever been to Gurgaon? I was just a couple, like 2-3 days ago in Gurgaon. Yes, I was there. Yeah, the pollution. Good God, what's happening right now? Oof. Geopolitical Dubai is here from Indore. Akshadakolgiri is from here from Pune. Khushbu Art. Khushbu Kumar. Sharad Subhadra. Himanshu Rajpurohit is here from Chennai. Okay, let's get going with some questions. What do we have? Shatabhish says, more we read Buddha, more evident it is as no self part of supreme consciousness is Advait and so rituals. Wonder if Dr. Ambedkar really missed this. I don't know about Dr. Ambedkar and what he has said about Buddhism, so I can't comment on that. I can't possibly comment on that. I haven't studied Dr. Ambedkar's life, career, writings, any of that, so I am absolutely no authority on Dr. Ambedkar. That's why I refrain from commenting about him. And when it comes to Buddhism, look, it's part of a much older tradition, right? We understand that. It is in Buddhism. They say that you had lots of Buddhas before the Buddha, before Gautam, Siddhartha Gautam, and there'll be more in the future. That's okay. But the only Buddha we are aware of is Gautam Buddha, right? From the hard evidence that we have, we are aware of Gautam Buddha. And the tradition is that there were many Buddhas before him. But we don't have evidence of those. So from what we see, Buddhism, what we call Buddhism today, the Bauddha philosophy, which is part of the Dharmic umbrella, it emerged with the life and career of Gautam Buddha. And obviously it's a continuation of older traditions that way predate Buddhism. So you're going to have these elements, significant elements and borrowings from older tradition. So there's no surprise in that. Okay, died in plane crash says, a question from Prashant Bharti. Does Putin have two secret sons? Well, if they are secret, how will I know about them? So I can't answer the question. Come on. I mean, do you guys imagine that I know about secrets that the whole world doesn't know about? How is that possible? Yeah. So I am not aware of any secret sons of Shri Putinji. I'm not. Black Star Clip says you've explained before how to achieve goals. Can you briefly explain how to create systems to achieve those goals? Look, creating systems it's you can't explain in a couple of minutes. The point is a system, it has an input and an output. It has a trigger and it has an action and it has a desired outcome. So let's say you want to create a system that gives you an efficient start of day routine. So what's the input? You opening your eyes is the input when you wake up in the morning. So immediately you need to have a system as to what to do. Essentially a routine. It's like a ritual, right? And you can have systems for all kinds of things. If you are a programmer, you can have systems for the which encodes the best practice for programming. So I can't explain in brief. It's not possible to explain something like this in brief. A system is, you could consider it to be a routine or a ritual or something that is triggered by specific things and so on. But systems is what gets you towards the goals. It is not, having a goal isn't enough. How are you going to achieve your goals? Yeah, it's not achieved through discipline and hard work and blah blah. You need discipline, you need hard work, but more than hard work, you need smart work. And smart work happens through systems. You need the right goals and you need the right systems for achieving them day in and day out. And achieving a goal is an incremental process. You have to break it down into bits, into bites, as small a bite as possible, and just keep on doing that. Keep the eye on the ball. You want to score a century in cricket, you have to take it one ball at a time. That's how it is. So even when you're batting, for example, you need to have a system. You can't focus fiercely throughout your batting innings, right? The moment the bowler is running towards you, you start intensifying your focus. When the bowler is during his gathering up, that's when you focus fiercely and you look only at the ball. Then you play the ball, and then you can allow your focus to wander or relax while the bowler goes back to his bowling mark, and then you start the process again. So everything is a system. You see, that's the thing. But I can't explain in 2 minutes. That's not possible. Bhaskar Bandit says, Happy Gregorian New Year. Well, same to you and same to everybody else. I've been watching you for the past 3 years. You put a huge impact in my life, and millions like me. Wishing you good health, support. Looking forward to all of us raising standards together. Jai Bharatam. Absolutely. Jai Bharat, everybody. Jai. And I wish you all the greatest of success and happiness in this Gregorian year and in the years ahead. Thank you very much for the very nice, kind words you have said here. Means a lot. And yeah, let's keep going, right? All right, Bhaskar Banditji, thank you very much. And Bhaskar Bandit says, after Venezuela, a successful regime change operation, seems Iran will be next. A pro-US Iran regime will challenge Russia plus China in West Asia. How could Bharat navigate through this? Future of Chabahar IMEC. Okay. Now that we are talking about Venezuela, first of all, isn't what happened in Venezuela really fishy? I mean, you would have seen, possibly, those of you who are interested in this matter, the clips that came out on social media, right? Of the American helicopters hovering over Caracas, the capital city, and firing whatever rockets or whatever and explosions and so on. Do you see a single instance in these video clips of somebody firing back at the helicopters from the ground? Do you see any air defense activity? There is zero air defense activity. Venezuela has reasonably capable air defenses. They have Sukhois, they have whatnot. Nothing was activated. Yeah. So it looks like it's pretty clear, actually. It doesn't look like, it's pretty clear that this was an inside job. There was some kind of backroom deal that happened. The deal would have been probably with key individuals in the Venezuelan government of Maduro and with key individuals in the Venezuelan military. And the deal would have been that we're going to come in, we're going to take out Maduro, We're going to move him to the US. You guys will stay quiet. You guys will not shoot back at the helicopters. You will allow us to take him. Then you can continue ruling the country as long as you give us the oil, and we will give you whatever you need personally. You and your families. We'll make you super rich. We'll give you privileges. But you've got to sell out your country to us now. So that's been the deal. It's kind of like Ashraf Ghani in reverse. Ashraf Ghani 2021, the fall of Afghanistan. It wasn't really the fall of Afghanistan, it was the US handing over power to the Taliban. And as part of that, Ashraf Ghani and his government, they had to disappear. So when the Taliban made its move on Kabul, did you see any resistance from the Afghan armed forces? Absolutely nothing. The Afghan armed forces disappeared. They dissolved into thin air. And Ashraf Ghani also vanished. So this is Ashraf Ghani in reverse, kind of. Now, the question that Bhaskar Bandit is asking, after the successful regime change operation in Venezuela, it seems Iran will be next. Well, that is a possibility. Yeah. The US is putting all the pieces on the chessboard in the right places, right? Step by step. So the first thing, the easy thing is Venezuela. Do a deal with the Venezuelan Socialist Party and key people in the military. You get Maduro. You give a win to the American people. You get the oil. You send a couple of globe masters to London to take away the 300 tons of Venezuelan gold in the Bank of London. You steal that, and things are good. All right. So Venezuela is done. Now all other little nations in Latin America that were pro-Venezuela, they will be really frightened and they will behave. If they don't, deal with them too. No need, because you just blockade them or whatever. There's no real resources in the other nations. So you're done with the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine is implemented. The Trump corollary is also implemented. And then what are the other pieces that remain that need to be fixed? Obviously, there's a Ukraine war going on. You can put it on ice right now. Let it go on. It's a frozen conflict. Yeah. Then you have Taiwan. Well, China dares not take Taiwan. Yeah. All it does is saber rattling right now. It dares not take Taiwan. It's not powerful enough. Even though Taiwan is right in its backyard, it can't. Then there is Iran. Then there is the question of Yemen, which is pro-Iran. So it makes sense to go for Iran next. And that's what Israel desperately wants. I mean, that's a big, big, big demand of Israel to deal with Iran. So it's possible that Iran could be next. Now we see the Americans took Venezuela. Did the Russians do a thing? Could the Chinese do a thing? Neither Russia nor China have anything like the power projection capabilities of the US. Venezuela was a sitting duck. It could have been done in a much more bloody way, but they did it in the easiest possible way. Kudos, America. That's how we do it. Now, if the US makes a move on Iran, can Russia or China intervene? I would say no. I'd say no. And I would say Iran has made a major, major mistake by not becoming a nuclear weapons power by now. Huge mistake. Yeah. So it possibly could be Iran next. When? We'll see about that. If there is a pro-US regime in Iran, well, if the regime of the mullahs is ousted, the current Islamic government of Iran, then you will have some form of pro-US government. Maybe the son of the Shah of Iran will return and be placed as a puppet Shah or something, who will obviously do everything the US tells him to do. So it becomes a pro-US government. So for India, to the west, we have West Pakistan, the temporary nation, which is pro-US and anti-India. And beyond West Pakistan, further west, you have Iran now, which is a pro-US government, which means it's anti-India. It's a bad scenario for India. It's a really bad scenario for India. And it's bad for Russia and China as well. So what does Bharat do? What's the future of Chabahar if you have a regime change in Iran? Chabahar is finished. Forget about Chabahar. IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe trade corridor, well, that may continue if the Americans allow it. If the Americans find it beneficial for them, it could continue. Otherwise, that also disappears. Most likely it will disappear. Or maybe it will be made to happen in some other way. We'll see. Chabahar, you can say it's finished. Okay, Chabahar will be finished if this happens. So that's where we are. Died in plane crash says your prediction of Ukraine partitioned along the Dnieper River east, it belongs to Russia, west and the rest is rump Ukraine, is exactly the same as John Mearsheimer. Sheimer. Is this a coincidence? Also, please watch his podcast with Tucker Carlton if you find time for it. My prediction that Ukraine will be partitioned, it's the same as the prediction of John Mearsheimer. Is this a coincidence? Look, when you think logically, when 7 people think logically, if they have logical minds, they will all come to the same conclusions. If they are, well, reasonably intelligent, I would say. So that's not a coincidence. If you ask 783 people to solve a differential equation, if they know mathematics, they will all come with the same solution, right? Is that a coincidence? It's not. It's just logic. So I don't think it's some kind of coincidence. It's just that is the most likely outcome based on the logic of strategy. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you. I don't know what John Mearsheimer has said. John Mearsheimer had said that Venezuela, the Americans won't be able to take it. Well, that prediction, if it's a prediction, has fallen flat. So you see, making predictions is it's a super risky thing to do. It's a risky thing. Ideally, you should not make predictions. You should make forecasts after proper thinking, and a forecast should always have a probability attached to it. So scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. If you have seen my geostrategy episodes, I usually give 3 or 4 scenarios, each with a probability attached to them, right? To it. That's how you do it. I mean, that is a more rigorous way of doing things. And unlike saying, you know what, I predict so and so thing will happen in the future. I am not in the business of making predictions. Anyway, his podcast with Tucker Carlton. I'll possibly, if I can find the time, I'll look into it. Thank you for the recommendation. Died in plane crash. Super sticker. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Parthenon says different variations of. Yeah, let's not discuss this matter. I'm not a big fan of this nonsense. So no. Basket Bandit says, what's the angle of Somaliland? Israel has recognized it as a sovereign nation. Can it be linked indirectly to Iran-related dynamics in the region, Iran's support to Houthi rebels just across from Somaliland itself? Yesterday, I gave a detailed analysis about Somaliland, the entire history of Somaliland, and why it is geographically important. Let's run through it briefly once again. Okay, I will not explain the history today because that will again take 20 minutes, and we're gonna go through a lot of questions today, as many as possible. So let's look at the map. So what is Somaliland? So let us ask Google. I know where it is, but just for the sake of illustrating it, Somaliland. So it's gonna zoom in here. So this region is Somaliland. Okay, this region, and the capital city is Hargeisa. This one here, and as you can see, this de facto nation, which is now recognized by Israel. This de facto nation, it sits at the mouth, essentially it overlooks the choke point, which is the Strait of Bab al-Mandeb, which connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. And this is a vital geographic choke point because it connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea, which has another choke point here, which is the Suez Canal. So Suez is a choke point. Gibraltar is a choke point over here. This here is a choke point. Then Suez is a major choke point, Suez Canal. Then you have the Strait of Bab al-Mandeb, which is a major choke point. Then there's an energy choke point here, which is the Strait of Hormuz. And then you have another choke point here, which is Malacca. And that's vitally important for China. But more than Malacca, it is Hormuz and Bab al-Mandeb that feed into Malacca. So India, see, we in India talk about, we will choke off this choke point. We'll block the Strait of Malacca. Wonderful. Our Navy can do it and we can blockade China. Fantastic, India. You know how the Americans think? They think that we will blockade Bab al-Mandeb and we will blockade Hormuz. They don't even think of Malacca. They don't have to think of Malacca. And that's how the Americans think. So if you essentially have Djibouti in your pocket, and if you have Eritrea, which is this nation here, in your pocket, and then if you have Somaliland in your pocket, then all you have to do is to find a way to solve the Yemen issue. If you can create a separate nation of South Yemen, which is in your pocket, then this entire place can be blockaded on demand. Essentially, this choke point, Bab al Mandeb. So, makes sense for the West to do it, makes sense for Israel to now recognize Somaliland. And if Israel does it, maybe the US will follow suit. And if the US follows suit, then all major nations, all the American vassals will recognize Somaliland. And then things fall into place. So, is this related to Iran related dynamics? Well, you see, Yemen, the major power in Yemen is the Ansar Allah faction, which is also known as the Houthis. They are pro Iran and they are anti Israel, and they have missiles that can reach Israel. And they have missiles that they've been firing at other countries like the UAE, etc. And they have been, actually, they have at times successfully blockaded the Strait of Bab al Mandeb. So, if you can solve these problems, solve the Yemen situation by creating South Yemen, which is not pro-Iran, along with Somaliland, Djibouti, and Eritrea, then the problem is solved, right? So, if that is done, then probably it will be easier for you to make a move on Iran itself. So, like I said, Venezuela has fallen. The Americans have taken over Venezuela, Caracas. They've done a regime change effectively over there. Now they could probably start working on this issue of the Bab al Mandeb Strait and the Houthis. Then they could probably perhaps make a move on Tehran itself. And if Iran falls, then it's major problems for Russia and for China, because Iran is a major ally for both nations. It will be a big setback for Russia and China. So everything is interconnected, interrelated, and it's all part of the dynamics that you are referring to. Monish Sabrinath, pranam Monish ji. Thank you very much. Monish Sabrinath says, in recent times, social media has shown a growing trend of hatred toward men, which even my female friends support. As someone who has never harmed any women, these labels make me question the purpose of my life. Okay. See, this misandry, this hatred towards men, its root cause is feminism. Feminism was a very valid and necessary movement in the United States. It emerged in the United States in the 18th and 19th centuries. Okay, women were very brutally oppressed. They did not have any rights, no right to property, no right to, no voting rights. Essentially, women were second class, third class, invisible citizens. They had no rights. And that's why it was very important for the women of the US to emancipate themselves and free themselves from this oppression. That's why this movement called feminism was necessary. And it emerged eventually. And eventually women got the rights that men have. But then the movement was hijacked by leftists, by Marxists. And then it turned into something entirely different. It became a movement to oppress men, essentially, to subjugate men and to relegate men to second-class citizen status. Essentially, that's what it was. And today, if you look at the US, it's a gynocentric society. It's a female-dominated society. Men are second-class kind of citizens, That's how it is. And the US exports its culture worldwide. So it exports feminism worldwide. Now you have all these sociology departments in India where you have feminist professors who will do their best to brainwash young girls into believing that there is a oppressive patriarchy that has been oppressing women. It's tied to Hinduism in India. And men are evil. And women have been oppressed for thousands of years. And women have to break the shackles of this oppression. And all your social media platforms, which are owned by the United States, will amplify these narratives. And that's why even innocent, well-meaning people will start believing this propaganda, that men are evil, men are patriarchal, oppressive, misogynistic, etc. And women have to resist men. Women have to break free of men. All men are evil. There are feminist women even have this hatred or this dislike for their male offspring, and they try to feminize them, and that's where all this transgender stuff comes from. You see, so women in the US want to become men, and they want to turn they want to turn men into women. Women want to masculinize themselves, and they want to feminize men. That's the deal in the US, and this nonsense is being spread across the world, and it has over time taken root in India as well. Even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, this was taking root in India. In various sociology departments, you had these short-haired female professors who would teach this nonsense, and that's why you will see this now part of Indian OTT platform culture now. All that stuff. Even high-ranking politicians now push this thing. I say, from my perspective, everybody should have the same rights, men as well as women, but no one should be positioned as higher or lower. And one gender cannot be demonized in this way. Yeah. So that's what's happening. But if this makes you question the purpose of life, you have to introspect. It should not make you question the purpose of life. If you have female friends who regard you as an oppressor and blah, 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 I think you need better friends. Yeah. So I'm not sure why it makes you question the purpose of life. It's obviously a problem in society. It's a problem in society. It's an issue in society. And the solution is to fix the education system, like I keep saying, like a broken record. I've been saying that for years. But obviously, maybe it's politically convenient to promote not women's equality, but women's predominance over men. So it is what it is. That's what's going on. Bhaskar Bandit says, what is your analysis on the most impactful geopolitical events we can expect to see in 2026? Well, analysis is done about something that happened in the past or the present situation. Asking me to analyze what's going to happen in the future is asking me to make predictions. I don't make predictions. I'm not in the business of making predictions. I can make forecasts, but that will require careful thinking and plotting out everything on the map and so on. So I'm not going to make forecasts at this point in time. I'm not going to make predictions. What can we expect to see? What kind of trends could we see in 2026? You can expect more pressure on India from the West, from the United States. You can see more alignment, further alignment between the US and Pakistan and US allies in the region with Pakistan. The US allies in West Asia, all of them. Yeah. All of them will align further with Pakistan. All of them. Yes, full support, sir. What else will we see? There could be a US move on Iran, possibly. What's the probability? I'll have to calculate that. I don't have a probability right now for you. Will Taiwan? What's Taiwan? Will China make a move on Taiwan? Well, I would say it's unlikely. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think it'll be unlikely. The US is the United States, its relative power has been declining over time. The US is now working on fixing that very rapidly. So I'm not sure if the Chinese will be able to make a move on Taiwan. Will the Ukraine war end? I'm hopeful it will end by the end of 2026, but who knows? So these are some of the things that could happen. West Asia could be a problem. There could be possibly Operation Sindoor 2.0, possibly. What's the likelihood? I'll have to see. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we can expect. More nations will recognize Somaliland. There'll be more. Well, Africa, you know how it is. So that will continue. And have I missed something? Yeah, these are the trends I can think of as of now. The dollar will get stronger. Bhaskar Bandit says, me and my friend have been living in Russia for 7 years. We met you in JD Summit 2023. Okay. Well, okay. With promising Bharat-Russia relations, we wish to enter import-export. Things Russia can buy from Bharat. Given your experience of world plus life, any guidance would be appreciated. Well, guidance here on this platform about import-export, what we can export from India that will be desirable in Russia and which will have a demand in Russia. Well, that's I'll have to think about it. Russia is obviously a more prosperous society than India, so they can afford to buy things that are more luxurious compared to what the average Indian can buy. So, what kind of things can India export um, that will be in demand in Russia? Um, Obviously, the climate in Russia is different, so the kind of textiles we wear here will only work for a few months in Russia in the summertime. Um, I'll have to think about this. What about industry, heavy industry, etc.? One thing you could do is manufacture keyboards in India. I'm not kidding. Manufacture high quality keyboards in India. Does Russia manufacture keyboards? I think it's unlikely. Let me quickly see. Okay, I mean, I'm just doing this in real time. Does Russia manufacture keyboards? Let's see. Keyboards. Does Russia manufacture keyboards? Russia does not currently have a significant domestic keyboard manufacturing industry. No commercial keyboards were being manufactured within the country in 2022. Does India manufacture keyboards? Let's see. India manufactures keyboards, made in India, etc. Okay, so the thing is, look, there will be very few companies in India that manufacture high quality keyboards. This is just one example I'm throwing out. Set up a company that manufactures high quality, world class keyboards in India. You don't need very high technology for that. You just need good, robust, high quality keyboards that are a pleasure to type on and which will last. Manufacture this in India, export to Russia, also sell in India. And that's one example. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff in India that is, more aligned with tradition, etc. Like clothing, textiles, furniture, maybe sandalwood stuff, maybe bags, carry bags and purses and whatnot. I think the opportunities and ideas are endless. Um, so this one can think of plenty of things that Russia can buy from Bharat. The keyboards is a great idea. Indian keyboards with no inbuilt backdoors or whatever that the West can exploit. Maybe that will be something. I'm sure there's a lot of ideas like that one can think of. But yeah, this is ideally an offline discussion, not an online discussion. Okay, all the best, sir. All the best to Bhaskar Bandit. Do well. Okay, Monish Tabarinath says, what message will you give to the future great leader of Bharat? If the future great leader of Bharat is watching you now, what message will I give if the future great leader of Bharat is watching you now? Okay, always prioritize hard power. Forget about this nonsense of soft power and morality and all that. Power is amoral. Always prioritize hard power. Hard power trumps all of the forms of power. Once you have the hard power, then you can talk about soft power. Soft power works only if you have hard power. That's the first thing. And secondly, technology trumps everything. Without technology, there is no power. If you want to be number one, you have to be number one in technology. That's number two. And what else? Reform education. Okay. Died in plane crash. Mr. Prigozhin says, why was USSR obsessed with submarines, especially titanium ones? Oh, well, you've been doing some reading, have you? What was it? Alpha class? Lyra class? 1970s. Okay, so the question is, why was the USSR obsessed with subs, especially titanium ones? Even the US did not build any titanium submarines. European and Typhoon class subs. Why no one talks about Chinese subs? Well, there are plenty of people who talk about Chinese subs. Maybe nobody in India talks about it. So let's do one thing. Let me start talking about Chinese subs. Then in a couple of weeks, everybody in India will start talking about it, and they'll be positioned as experts. That's what typically happens. Anyway, let's talk about the titanium submarines of the USSR. If I recall correctly, they were called the Lyra class or Alpha class. Maybe the name was interchangeable. 1970s, maybe 71, 72, somewhere around that time. The hull was made of titanium, and it had a very specialized nuclear reactor. Lead bismuth cooled nuclear reactor. Was it lead bismuth? Was it mercury bismuth? We will look it up in a moment. It was a small submarine. It was made as small as was possible because the nuclear reactor could be miniaturized because of this novel cooling method. It was not cooled by seawater. It was cooled by this mixture of lead and bismuth or mercury and bismuth. Yeah, and it had a small crew. So let's Google this quickly. Okay, maybe we'll look at the Wikipedia article. Lyra class submarine. Okay, Alpha class. Okay, Alpha class. Nuclear power. These were interceptor submarines, right? Interceptors. Unique design, bismuth lead bismuth. Yeah, it was lead bismuth liquid metal cooled reactor as a power source, which greatly reduced the size of the reactor, etc., reducing the overall size, allowing for very high speeds. Must be around 40 knots or something. How many knots? What the speed would have been around 40 knots. KNOTS knots. 40 knots. Okay, for in excess of 40 knots. Yes, it was. Which year was this? 71 to 90s. Yes. So that's the deal. Lyra. Okay, it's also called Project Lyra, Project 705 Lyra, but it's called the Alpha class. It means lyre, the musical instrument. Yes, and it used titanium for its hull. So titanium is harder than steel, but it's like half the weight roughly of steel. Maybe less, maybe more, but it's like significantly lighter than steel. So you can have a much lighter submarine, a submarine that can dive much further, maybe 2,000 feet, yeah, or more. And the revolutionary design of the nuclear reactor can ensure that it can be significantly miniaturized. So overall, the entire thing is much smaller, way smaller than a regular submarine. So that's what this Alpha class, Lyra class set of submarines was. And the USSR pioneered this. These were made of titanium. Why was the USSR obsessed with subs? Because submarines are way more deadly than your goddamn aircraft carriers. Please understand this. I have been saying this for so long that people are like, no, aircraft carrier Zindabad. In India, we are still stuck in this 20th century mindset. The Russians, the Soviets in the 1970s knew the future. That's why they were obsessed with subs. Subs are invisible. They are stealthy. They are deadly. Submarines are the most dangerous type of naval asset any nation can have. A submarine that's submerged, if it is stealthy enough, it can wipe out an entire aircraft carrier. If you can imbue it with sufficient stealth. Okay, that's why submarines are what India needs to invest in. Anyhow, the Soviets did this. The Americans did not build any titanium subs. Why is that? Because titanium has these unique properties. So when you are welding titanium, when you're welding it together, if you apply the wrong kind of heat to, if the heat is too much or whatever, then the titanium becomes brittle. Just a small mistake will make the titanium very brittle, and then when the sub dives, it may crack. The hull may crack. So you have to be really, really careful while welding these hulls together. And the Americans decided that, it's not worth the risk. So the Americans did not build any titanium subs. The Soviets did a few, and then I think they also gave up on the project. And then they used the same design with steel, which meant that the sub would be way heavier, but it still worked really well. So that was the deal with these Alpha or Lyra class submarines. It was an interesting experiment. I don't think anyone's making any titanium hulled submarines today. Some people have experimented with fiberglass with tragic results. Now the Typhoon class, I don't remember the Typhoon class. Let's quickly look it up. What exactly was the Typhoon class submarine? Okay, let's see. Typhoon class submarine. Okay, so once again, this is the Akula class. Project 941 Akula. Yeah, what's my opinion? I'm sure that it was good. It was, so submarine development is an iterative process. So this was a retired class of it was It was built from 76 to 89, service from 81 to 2023. Um, how many did we have? We had 6 were completed. Ballistic missile submarine and operators, I'm sure, history, units, etc. Typhoon class. Yeah, so okay. Yeah, so that's a Typhoon class. See, submarine development is an iterative process. Iterative process. You develop one class of submarines, then you improve upon it. So each new submarine that you build or new class of submarine, let's say one submarine class will have 5 or 6 submarines. So then, and each of these submarines will be somewhat different from each other. So then you do that and you learn the lessons from this design. And then you create a new class of submarines which will incorporate all the lessons you've learned. And this new class of submarines will be iteratively better, maybe 10-20% better than the previous class. Then again, in 10 years, you do another class of submarines. That will again be 20% better. That's how you, over the years, iteratively improve your submarine designs. That's how it goes. That's how it goes with fighter planes. That's how it goes with most development. And that's what the Chinese have also been doing. The original initial Chinese submarines were very loud, very noisy, and very inefficient. But now the Chinese submarines are getting better over time, and they also have nuclear propulsion submarines. They're getting better over time. So yeah. Died in plane crash says, are you excited for Dhurandhar 2? Yes, I shall watch it. I generally have this rule that I don't watch Hindi movies, but I broke that rule for Dhurandhar 1. It was a pretty good movie. I liked it. And I look forward to watching the second one, which comes out, March, April, sometime this year. So, yeah, I look forward to watching it. UMXG LOL haha says, is namak a Persian word or a Sanskrit word? As far as I know, it's a Persian origin word. It is not Arabic in origin. It is Persian in origin. It means salt, obviously. Monish Sabarinath says, why do people demonize men for not expressing feelings and link it with oppressing women? This is all part of this feminist nonsense propaganda and all. Men and women are different. Okay, it's just biological. The differences are biological, the differences are psychological, the differences are behavioral, and so on. It is a fact. And this dichotomy is seen not just in humans, but in all kinds of other species. So if men are different from women, why do they have to be demonized for that? I don't get it. And if people do that, why do you pay attention and why do you bother with it? Why do you care? Be yourself. Just be yourself. What is this theory? This stoicism or whatever it is. To hell with what people think and what people say. You be you, you do you, and you live your life and be happy. Right? That's what it is. I mean, if you watch all the 1980s and 1990s action movies, that's your typical male protagonist. Stoic, doesn't express feelings and gets the job done. That's your typical competent man, isn't it? So I would suggest don't get hurt when people demonize men or stereotype men or say that men should not be men should not mansplain, manspread, whatever. Why do you get hurt? Why are your feelings hurt? Laugh it off. To hell with them. You be you, that's it. Don't let other people's opinions make a difference in your life. Ignore. Monish Sabrinath says, how did Vladimir Putin take control of the Russian army as he came there by the route of politics? How do politicians take control of army without force? Look, there is a system in every nation. In the USSR, there was a system. After the USSR broke up, you had Russia. And Russia had a system. In India, we have a system. And for a functioning society and for the benefit and for the safety and security of the nation, everybody has to follow the rules and the processes of the system. Everyone understands that. So the people who are inculcated into the bureaucracy, into the armed forces, into the police forces, they are trained. They are trained to obey the right kind of authority. So when there's a new prime minister or president who takes power, you obey that person. And if you stop obeying, then the whole country falls apart. So when somebody takes over as a new president, you don't have to go and physically grab somebody's throat to take control. You are automatically in control the moment you become the president. And then if you demonstrate that you mean business and you are competent and you are taking the country in the right direction, then the control and authority becomes even more powerful. That's how it is done. Now, when there's an election in India and somebody becomes MLA or chief minister, don't they automatically take control of the police force of the state? It's automatic. That's how it goes. But if you are in an African country in a dictatorship, then you have to use other means, and then that's where you have to really understand what power means. What is power? How does somebody in a lawless country acquire power and control a militia, an armed force, or whatever? Well, that's a whole different story. We were not discussing that today. But that will actually teach you what power is. What is the true nature and meaning of power? UMXG lol haha says, why does India not have one unified script we ever had? India is a gigantic landmass. It is a subcontinent. It is not a nation with 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 people. It's a civilization. That's why we've had multiple scripts. We've always had multiple scripts. Always. Right? That's actually something that makes India great as opposed to weak. But you can have one script for the national or civilizational language. You see, we have so many scripts in India, right? For example, we have the Tamil script, we have the Telugu script, we have the Kannada script, we have the old Brahmi script, we have the Devanagari script, we have the Gurmukhi script. You can write Tamil in Devanagari. You can write Hindi in the Tamil script. This is all interchangeable. It's actually wonderful, the kind of system that we have. UMXG lol haha says, many temples get huge inflows, yet are overcrowded and poorly managed. Extreme rush, police pushing devotees, barely a glimpse of the idol. People question the purpose of worship now, and some even convert because of this. Thoughts? You know, what you're saying is true. Lots of temples, especially the big ones, the famous ones, first of all, they are now managed by the government. The government controls the temples. What you see typically is that the temples are not very clean. The surroundings are very cramped. There's a lot of uncleanliness in the surroundings. There's huge queues, and the queues are shepherded through these narrow passages, and people are mistreated. And the moment you see the murti, the idol, you're given like 3 seconds to take a darshan, if even that is too much, and then you're pushed away. Move on, keep going. That's not how things are supposed to be done. That's just wrong. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that worship is not to be done. My point is, okay, so the reason for this is that today you don't have kings or emperors who take care of these things. Kings and emperors were invested in our culture and civilization. They understood the feelings of the devotees. They understood how things are to be done. Today it's the government of India. The government of India is a secular entity. It doesn't care about culture, civilization, feelings of people, whatever. It cares about extracting money from temples. That's all. That's why things are so bad. But does it mean you should stop worship? You should convert to a different religion? What utter nonsense. You can have your own murti in your home and pray. Or go to your local temple. It's the same God, right? So I don't get why people are so low IQ and stupid that because you have the situation, because the government mismanages and hijacks our temples, that's why we should convert to a different religion. That is seriously, the only word I have is stupid. James, my dear friend James, my good chap. James says, English remains the dominant language in the world for a reason. It is clearly more superior, best sounding, easy to learn. We developed the modern world for you. You were stuck in the past, criticizing a language, just a tool of communication. English, easy to learn. Okay. Let's say you use let's examine a few words in the English language. English. Can. Can, right? A can of tomatoes, can of whatever, can of beans, can. What's the plural of can? Cans. C-A-N, can. Plural is C-A-N-S, cans. Man. M-A-N, man. What's the plural? Should be mans, right? But it's not mans. It's men. M-E-N, men. Where's the logic? Right? Where's the logic? Can, cans. Man, men. What about woman? Well, it's not women's. It's women. How does that work? And you don't say woman, men, so it should be women, but it's women. Women. But the spelling is W-O-M-E-N. So if the spelling is W-O-M-E-N, it should be women. Like M-E-N is men, so W-O-M-E-N should be women, but it's women. I mean, I could just go on and on. There's no logic in the English language. And the English language doesn't even have its own script, by the way. It uses the Latin script. So it's actually a really comical language, It's the language we use today because it's the language of the dominant caste in the world, ethnicity in the world, the Anglos. And you guys rule the world right now, which is why we use the language. Why do I use the language? Well, I'll use the language of the oppressor to speak about the oppressor, right? So that's the thing. It is the dominant language in the world today, no question about that. Is it superior? No, it's superior because you guys have historically the past 500 years been superior in the organized application and use of violence. That's why your language is the dominant language right now. Won't be that way forever. Anyhow, James, always good to have you. Karan says, please Google the Gohar Shad Mosque, Shah Abbas Mosque, Sheikh Lotfullah Mosque, Sultaniyat Dome, Samarkand Mosques. The domes closely resemble the Taj Mahals and were built centuries before it. Gohar Shad Mosque, Gohar Shad was the wife of Shahrukh, the Turkic king of Persia. Okay, let's see. So you're trying to, I understand what you're doing. You're trying to debunk the logic that I have used, that the Taj Mahal is not Islamic architecture, it's Indian or Persian influenced architecture. You're saying before the Taj Mahal you had other things like this. Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Gohar Shad Mosque. What's it look like? Does this look like the Taj Mahal? The dome. Look, this is not Arabic architecture. This is Persian architecture. Okay, even though the Gohar Shad was the wife of a Turk. Now you had Gohar Shad Mosque, you have Shah. What about the Shah Abbas? Sorry, Abbas. Shah Mosque, Isfahan. Again, Persian architecture, not Arabic architecture. Just don't understand the logic in people's minds. Sheikh Lotfullah Mosque. Where is this? Which part of the world is it in? Sheikh Lotfullah Mosque. It's Isfahan. So once again, Persian architecture, not Arabic architecture. Sultaniya is going to be again Persian. Samarkand Mosque. Let me tell you something, my dear friends. Okay, Samarkand Mosque is this one. Oh, sorry, it was on the screen. Okay. Samarkand Mosque is this thing. Okay. These mosques in Samarkand were built by Indian slaves, by the way, of FYI. Okay. These mosques were built by Indian slaves. I will prove it to you once again. This is the Sheikh Lotfullah Mosque with those domes. Then you have Shah Abbas Mosque in Isfahan with that dome. Then you have the Gohar Shad Mosque. Gohar Shad was the wife of Shahrukh, the Turkic king of Persia, who was an invader, just like Aurangzeb. So you're trying to say that you had these mosques that predate the Taj Mahal, and they have these domes, which is why my claim that these domed structures are not Islamic architecture is wrong, which is totally incorrect. Your argument is incorrect. Because this is Persian architecture. Persian architecture is not Arabic architecture. I have shown in a previous episode that Arabic architecture is all rectangles and flat stuff. There are no domes there. The domes came from India and Persia. Persia is an offshoot of India. Okay. Now let me show you something else which is more interesting. This is okay. Your attempt to debunk me has not really worked. But let me show you something interesting. Something that is genuinely interesting. Okay. Once again, let us go to my Twitter account and let us search for the word mosque. Mosque in my Twitter account. Not that. Look at this. This is the Masjid Kabud, the blue mosque in Tabriz, Iran. What do you see? You see swastikas on a mosque in Persia, in Iran, blue mosque in Iran. This is the Poi Kalon Mosque in Uzbekistan. What do you see? You see a swastika-like design. This is a mosque in Kashgar, present-day China. What do you see on the floor? A swastika design. Let me show you more. Jarkent Mosque, Kazakhstan. Swastikas. 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 Swastik. What else do we have? The Mosque of Hagia Sophia. Well, it used to be a church. This is Byzantine art. Okay. Let me show you more. The Grand Mosque of Cordoba in Spain. Was it? Yeah, there are swastikas there. Then you have the Kalyan Mosque in Bukhara, Uzbekistan. What do you have here? You have swastikas. Let me show you more. This is the Bibi Khanum Mosque in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. You will see swastikas over here. And if that's not the case, well, what do we have here? The Mosque of Khoja Ahmad Yasevi. Once again, swastika. What have we here? The Masjid-e-Jameh in Yazd, Iran. What do you have? Swastikas. I'll show you more. Bibi Khanum Mosque, Uzbekistan, Samarkand. Swastikas. Jameh Mosque, Isfahan. Swastikas. I mean, I could go on and on. Khoja Ahmed Yasevi and so on. Azad. Let me show you. 1 second. Okay. This is the Islamic Azad University, Tehran. What do you see there? Swastikas. Let's see Timur. Okay, 1 second. Timur. You see this? This is the tomb of Timur. And what you will find here is swastikas. So, who built these monuments? Indian slaves. So yeah, once again, coming back to your argument, really, please give me a better argument. If you want to debunk me, sure, please. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to accept I'm wrong. But better arguments, please. Better logic. Thank you. Suraj says, claims that okay, once again, someone's trying to debunk what I said. Okay. DNA results. Show me Saddam Hussein's DNA results. It is alleged that the Americans, let me read this out. Claims that Saddam was of Indian descent were pushed by opponents like extremist Qais al-Khazali. DNA results instead showed 45% Arab, 30% Persian, 15% Mesopotamian, and the rest Caucasian. Rare disappointment. So Suraj is rarely disappointed with me, but today he's super disappointed. Saddam Hussein, it is alleged his DNA was tested by Americans. Obviously, he was their captive. They would have done it. But have they ever published it? They have never published it. So where did you come up with these figures? That's disappointing. How did you come up with these figures? 45% Arab, 30%. Where did you come up with this? His DNA results are secret. The Americans won't publish that. So how do you have it? Please explain to me. Next. Abhishek Srivastav, Grok uploads bikini pics. Is era of dangerous AI begin? This is actually not dangerous AI. This is just cringe-worthy AI. Everyone, I mean, if you go on Twitter, half the people there are saying, "Please put a bikini on this," or "Please put a bikini on that." Elon Musk is encouraging that, and that's just cringe-worthy, I would say. What's the point? This is not dangerous AI. This is cringe-worthy AI. It's just AI in bad taste. Imagine how much computing power goes into creating this stupid bikini pics. This is the problem with humanity. You create the most advanced technology and people will use it for idiotic purposes. What can I say? Jimmy Lay, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, sir. Jimmy Lee, thank you. Pratap Dana says, identity of Kassite invaders of Babylon. Names sound Vedic. Bugas Baga, Marutas, Abhiratha, they appeared around 1600 BC. Yeah, so there's this bunch of people who suddenly appear in West Asia. See, what we find, chronologically, it makes a lot of sense. Just give me a second. This is imported from Targovishta in Transylvania. Okay. So around 2000 BC, something really interesting happens in West Asia. The interesting thing that happens in West Asia around 2000 BC is that there is this sudden introgression, means appearance in West Asia, of Indian Zebu cattle. Zebu cattle are of Indian origin. Before 2000 BC, there were no Zebu cattle in West Asia. Suddenly, around 2000 BC, you find Zebu cattle in West Asia. And suddenly, around the same time, 2000 BC, we find paintings or etchings of Zebu cattle in Egypt. So clearly, Indians appeared in West Asia around 2000 BC. And that's where you have the emergence of Aryan or Indo-Aryan kingdoms and empires. The Mitanni Empire was very clearly Indian. The aristocracy or royalty was Indian. The Hittites, once again, the royalty was Indian. And possibly the Kassites, right? Their names also sound Vedic. So it's possible that the Kassites were also of Indian origin. Maybe Indians reached this region and set up multiple kingdoms that were perhaps roughly contemporaneous with each other, and maybe spread out across the region. Some in Anatolia, some in the Syria region, some further east of Syria, which is present-day Mesopotamia, that region, Babylon. Yeah. But Western historians will mostly try their best to deny the Indian origins. They can't in the case of the Hittites and the Mitanni because they were so clearly Indo-Aryan, and not just Indo-Aryan, but Hindu. But the Kassites it's still kind of disputed. But most likely, yeah, based on the names you're giving us, let's see if we have some other names of the Kassite rulers. Kassites. Okay, let's go to Wikipedia. Or let's go to we'll go to Wikipedia, even though it's not necessarily a good source of information. Yeah, so you can see there's along the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. And what are the names of their kings? Kurduniash, Kassite term used for the kingdom. Okay. Amarna letters. Labaya was a Canaanite prince. Do we have the names of some of their kings? Kassite deities. Language isolate. Okay. So, the Kassite language, the origin is uncertain. Some people have even linked it to Sanskrit, but that is obviously naughty according to Wikipedia. The Kassite deities. What are the deities? Disproved theories. So disproved theories means they cannot be the Greek Boreas or Vedic Maruts, etc. Can't be India. India cannot be the case ever. So yeah, if you look at the Western interpretations, India is never going to figure in these things, but it's possible that they could be of Indian origin based on the evidence that we have and the interlinkages between the evidence. King Ritwik says best Balochistan scenario favoring India. One, independent country. Second, becomes a part of Iran, which is enemy of the USA. Third, currently Pak occupied Balochistan. Best scenario for India. So if Balochistan remains part of Pakistan, then the people of Balochistan will continue to be oppressed, and of course they will do their best to damage Pakistani interests. If Balochistan becomes independent, it means Pakistan is broken up. Okay, without Pakistan breaking up completely, Balochistan doesn't become independent. Becomes part of Iran, which is part enemy of the. I would say the best case scenario is independent Balochistan, which means Pakistan has broken up completely. That is the best case scenario for India. Best scenario favoring India. Balochistan will not be independent and the rest of Pakistan remains united. It's not possible at all. So, Pratar Dana says Venezuela operation looks staged as hell. Oh, it's clearly an inside job of some kind. There was some kind of backroom deal somewhere. Look, it's very clear now that the American helicopters went in, took Mr. Maduro, abducted him and his wife, and took them to New York. First took him to the USS Iwo Jima, and from there to New York. Now, when the American helicopters are flying over Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, how come there was no air defense activity? How come there were no anti-aircraft missiles fired? How come there was no anti-aircraft fire, gunfire? Nothing. It's like they just allowed them to come in, take over, and take the guy and leave. So clearly, the Americans first made a deal with the Socialist Party of Venezuela, the key people in that, and the key people in the Venezuelan military. They bribed them or whatever, or threatened them, or maybe a combination of bribing and threatening. So the key people in power in Venezuela, in the military and in politics, knew, and they had agreed with the US. This is what's going to happen. We're going to allow you to take him, and then we're going to cooperate with you, and you make us rich. Clearly, that's what happened. So the regime change is very weird. They just take out the main guy, and now the vice president is now the person in power, that lady, and she's going to cooperate with the US. She's going to give them all the oil they want and everything they want. So it's like the US has its own client state now in Venezuela. That's it. Done deal. Outstanding. Well done. Ritik Pawar says, do nukes give 100% guarantee to that a country cannot be invaded? Hypothetically, if Venezuela had nuclear weapons, would the US dare to invade? Well, that's a very pertinent question, and that brings me to the tweet that I have made today. So let me find the tweet and put that on the screen and then discuss. Then we shall discuss and examine this issue. So where is my Twitter account? Let me open this. 1 second. What was that? Give me a second. Okay. So let's go to my Twitter account. Let's put that on the screen. And so this is the tweet. To all Indians rejoicing in our sovereignty because we have nuclear weapons, a sobering thought. Nuclear weapons are necessary for sovereignty, but not sufficient. You need the right leadership. The wrong leadership may end up surrendering your nukes to the enemy. Case in point, Ukraine 1996. Ukraine is a great example. Ukraine had nukes until 1996. There were Soviet nukes, but the Ukrainians had nukes. And they gave up those nukes to the Russians to be dismantled or for whatever the Russians wanted to do. And that's why the Ukraine situation exists today. If the Ukrainians had nukes until the 21st century, they would not have had to become a client state of the US, and they would not have been a situation where there's a war today. So if the Ukrainians had nukes, things would have been different. Now coming to the question about nukes actually. So if you have nukes, let's say you're India, you have nukes. Does it guarantee that your country won't be invaded? We just discussed Venezuela, right? Venezuela had air defenses. Venezuela had Sukhois. They had all kinds of weapons. But when the Americans invaded and came for Maduro, not a single weapon was used. Nothing was used. What's the point of having weapons if you won't use them? So why were the weapons not used? Because the Americans reached some kind of deal, secret deal, with the key people in power in the Venezuelan ruling party and the military. So what if you are a nation with nukes and your enemy, whoever they bribe your leaders and your key people that we're going to come and invade your country, we're going to give you as much money as you want, don't use your nukes. Then what happens? Your nukes are worthless then. Your nukes are utterly worthless if your leaders don't have principles and will be bribed and will be bought. Then they will allow the enemy to invade, and then they will hand over the nukes on a platter to your enemy. So you need nukes, but you also need the right leadership. Please understand that. Okay. I don't know how to pronounce that. Is it? Yeah. What's the history of the Mundari tribe in South Sudan? Are they related to Hindu culture? I don't know about the history of the Mundari tribe. So that's the problem with history. When it comes to geopolitics, everything is logical. And if you know the broad strokes history of the world, then you understand geopolitics. When it comes to history, if you ask me a specific question about some tribe or some dynasty somewhere, I may have absolutely no idea about it. So I have not studied the history of the Mundari tribe in South Sudan. I have no idea what their culture is like, what their history is like. So unfortunately, I can't answer the question because I don't have the information. Sorry. King Ritvik says, isn't a Venezuela type situation not at all possible in Iran and North Korea? Because these two countries are dictatorships. You cannot do an inside job. Let's say you have a dictatorship. Okay? So in a dictatorship, you have one person who is in the position of being the overall boss. That's the face of the dictatorship. Dictatorship has a face. In China, it is Mr. Xi Jinping. In North Korea, it is Mr. Kim Jong-un, etc. So in a dictatorship, you have the key person, the face, but that one person doesn't have all the power. Please understand this, my dear children. That one person doesn't have all the power. That one person relies on an inner circle of people who share power with him. But this person at the top has mastered the politics which keeps him in power at the number one position. He's able to play everybody off against each other, and he understands the system better than anybody else. And he is seen as the person, even by the inner circle, as the person who gives everybody the best chance of success. That's why that person is in power, or is the face of the dictatorship. But there'll be 20, 30, 50, maybe 100 people in the inner circle who are almost equally powerful and who have their own ambitions. So in a dictatorship, let's say I have so-and-so leader, and that person, let's say they have an inner circle of 50 people. And under the 50 people, you have 2,000 people. Under those 2,000, you've got 20,000, and so on. It's a pyramidal structure. All you have to do is to bribe the right people. In a democracy, it's very difficult. In a dictatorship, it's way easier. Okay? It's way easier, actually. It's actually way easier. So if you can promise those people, wealth, power, privilege, riches, then you may be able to break the country, destroy the dictatorship without having to fire a shot. So that's possible. It's definitely possible in Iran and North Korea. In North Korea, it may be difficult because it's a very insular country. It's not a country that's doesn't have a great interface with the world. It's kind of insulated from the world. Iran is less insular than North Korea. So Iran, it's actually easier. North Korea is harder. Amisha Mishra says no nation has the guts to say anything to the US. Even China, Russia are just condemning no action. Of course, no action. Don't you think other powerful nations will follow the same thing? Which thing? Don't you think other powerful nation will follow the same thing? You mean do what the US did? If you can get away with it, you will do it. The US is the most powerful nation. I mean, what happened yesterday has shown the world where the real power lies. Can China take Taiwan? They dare not. Can Russia take the rest of Ukraine? They right now want to fight a slow war. It's in their benefit to fight a slow war, not to take the whole nation in 2 weeks. Ukraine. US goes and gets what it wants. Done deal. End of story. Venezuela is solved. That's what real power is. When you have real power, you don't have to give reasons. You don't have to justify anything. You don't have to give excuses. Yeah, you have to kind of justify, and your justification can be completely ridiculous, like the US justification for Venezuela, but it doesn't matter. And nobody will condemn. So various world leaders have kind of expressed some reservations that this was not entirely according to international law and so on and so forth. We are concerned about this, the kind of precedent it sets and so on, but it's all verbal. Nobody has taken any action against the US. Even Russia and China have simply expressed their disappointment, dissatisfaction. China has condemned what's happened, but it's just karininda. It's just words. They can't take any action. It demonstrates who is way more powerful than everybody else. The US is way more powerful than China or Russia. India has simply said that we are monitoring the situation. Effectively, that's what we have said. We are concerned and we are monitoring the situation. Yeah. So that is the situation. Now, do I think other powerful nations will follow the same thing? Yeah, if you can get away with it, you will do it. So the question is, who is powerful in this manner? Can China do the same thing to Taiwan? They can't. Taiwan is in their backyard, but they can't do it. The US is so powerful. Russia could try to do that against Zelensky potentially. We'll see. We'll wait and watch. So this sets a precedent. According to international law, you can't do such things. You have to respect other nations' sovereignty. You may not like the nation, you may not like the president, but you can't behave in this manner. Otherwise, the entire edifice of international order breaks down. But the situation is that the US has done it. Others won't be allowed to do it. So, yeah, that's where we are. And that demonstrates where the real power lies in the world. Shubhrat Shukla says, Japan and South Korea TFR is low because of overwork. Then what's wrong with Europe, since they are not overworked at all? See, it's not always just one cause. There is a multiplicity of causes that come together to create a situation, but sometimes one factor predominates over the others. One factor is overwork. You are working so hard, everybody has to work so hard to have an income that you just don't have the time to procreate. The husband and the wife are both working in separate jobs. Both are working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, 6.5 days a week. Then how will they ever have the time to procreate? That's one factor. Another factor is the cost of living. Let's say you are not working 12 hours a day. You are in Europe, you're working 40 hours a week, 5 days a week maximum. But the cost of living is incredibly high. So you can live a nice life peacefully, but if you have a kid, then the cost of medical treatment is incredibly high, astronomically high. Medical treatment is not always available when you need it. Then the cost of schooling is incredibly high. Then the cost of higher education is even higher. So that's one scenario. I'm not saying every nation has this scenario. There are multiple factors that come together. Then there's the social situation. There's immigration. Immigrants are violent. You're scared to expose children to such a world. So some people say we'll not have kids. There are multiple factors that come together to create a situation. It's not just one factor. Please, let's analyze things in more detail. Surface level analysis is never good. Fast Snail says, could this impact Canadian oil and Keystone pipeline? Could what impact? Venezuela. What's the Keystone pipeline? Are you talking about Venezuela? What happened in Venezuela? Is that what you're talking about? I suppose you must be talking about that. Um, um, could this impact Canadian oil and Keystone pipeline? If the US takes over Venezuela, could that impact Canada? What is the look? 1 second. Let me see. What is the Keystone pipeline? Keystone, Keystone pipeline. Where is this Keystone pipeline? Network transporting crude oil from Alberta to, yeah, from Canada to the US. Okay. I'm not sure how it impacts Canada and the Keystone pipeline. I'm not really sure. Okay. So I'm not sure how this was better. How it would impact the Keystone pipeline. Right, next. Biju Saika says most of the revolutions actually produced huge amount of deaths and economic and political instability. But still, people today feel excited by hearing the word revolution. Why? Because people have learned about the word revolution in a textbook, sitting in a classroom. And they have been taught about revolution, what revolution means, by some professor, by some teacher. And your textbooks and your teachers and professors will conveniently omit what revolutions really are. Revolutions are bloody, violent, chaotic affairs. They cause a tremendous amount of damage to society, to your nation. If there's a revolution in your nation, you're going to end up losing territory. Other nations will come and bite at your territories. You're going to have tremendous violence and destruction in society. You're going to have bloodshed. And at the end of the revolution, if the revolution succeeds, who's going to end up leading the country? The leaders of the revolution. Who are typically the leaders of a revolution? The most violent people are the leaders of a revolution. Yeah. So that's how it generally goes. But none of that is ever taught. If you are taught about the French Revolution, they will teach you about liberté, égalité, fraternité, the wonderful ideas of the French Revolution. They will give some account of the reign of terror, about what Robespierre did, and some things about the guillotine, but it will not really, convey the horror and the devastation to those who study it. So that's why, and if your textbook is written from a Marxist perspective, and if your professors have the Marxist ideology in their bloods, my goodness, they're going to glorify revolutions and portray it as something wonderful. So that's why people who study things from textbooks and in classrooms without actually interfacing the real world, they'll think revolutions are wonderful things. And that's the situation. Sushant Gurjar says the main reason for different empires occupying us in the past 1,000 years was not only that we were divided, but we did not have Shatru Bodh, which is still the case. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, this word has become very popular these days in Indian circles. Shatru Bodh. Shatru Bodh. Actually, there is a significant element of truth to this. So you have to understand the enemy. You have to understand those who seek to destroy our society, destroy our culture, your civilization. You have to study them the way you would study a virus or a bacterium. You have to study them. You have to understand their characteristics. You have to understand their mechanism of action. You have to understand their pathologies. You have to understand their true nature. You have to understand what they truly seek to do. Right? That's what you have to do. And in India, it's been like, we did not bother to study the adversaries properly, what their true intentions and motives were. And yeah, it is still the case. It is still the case because we are all educated in classrooms from textbooks. In your classroom, your teacher will not tell you what the real world is like, and what the national interest is, what the civilizational interest is, and what the enemies of nation and civilization are, and what they seek to do, and what are their characteristics. None of this is taught today. So that's why we have to educate ourselves on our own. These are my thoughts on this. Shravya K says, what caused USA Mexico war? Why USA not annexed Mexico? The USA was a territory hungry nation. It wanted more territory. It found the justification, the pretext for a war with Mexico and grabbed more territory. Colorado, Texas, California, etc. It took all the nice territory, and as you go further south, the territory becomes more desertified and hotter. And they don't want all the territory. They got all the nice big territory. Texas is huge. Arizona, Colorado is huge. California is gigantic, beautiful. So much prime territory was taken. New Mexico, all of that. I mean, if you look at the map of the United States, okay. Um, First of all, let's see, okay. US Mexico War, 1846, right? Okay, map before and after. So, can you see the map? How much, how large Mexico was? And all of that green territory, like half of it was taken over by the US. Yeah, this kind of gives you an idea. I'm 1 second. This probably gives you an idea. So the Americans found a pretext to go to war with Mexico, and they took over about half of the territory of Mexico. Eventually, as you go further south, there's desert, the Sonoran Desert, and so on, and that's something the US didn't want. Baja California, they said let it remain with Mexico, and so on. So, yeah. EKS Baga says, why was China's envoy in Venezuela? I'm not sure. I did not look into that. The envoy was in Mexico, in Venezuela yesterday. A delegation was in Mexico, in Venezuela yesterday. Why was that the case? I have not looked into it. Could be routine consultations, could be something else. I am not really sure. It doesn't really matter at this point. Shankar Mahadevan says, Indian government compromised on the Starlink part. Explain. Look, I don't know whether the Indian government is compromised on Starlink or not. What is my position on Starlink? My position has been clear from the beginning. India should not allow Starlink to operate within Indian territory. As simple as that. That has always been my position from the beginning, before people even started talking about Starlink potentially coming to India. Starlink should not be allowed to operate within India. It will be used in the future in operations to potentially destabilize or break India if it is allowed to operate in India. Yeah, so we should not give Starlink permission to operate in India. As simple as that. And I hope that the government of India will make the right decision. Okay, died in plane crash, says the UA media. Ukrainian media outlet claimed Buryats are weaker than Ukrainian soldiers in Ukrainska Pravda, and Pravda means truth. Okay, Pravda means truth, and Ukrainska Pravda means Ukrainian truth. And that media outlet called Ukrainska Pravda claimed that Buryats are weaker than Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't it ironic? Well, it's propaganda. Propaganda is a legitimate part of warfare. It is what it is. P. Call says, could you please explain the concept of Greater Israel? Will it be a reality, as we know that Israel has never really defined its official borders, and in every war it takes some land of the opposite nation? I have not looked into this matter of Greater Israel. Does it even really exist? Is it just a myth? I don't know. I am not aware of whether this is an official position of Israel, whether it is some kind of secret aspiration. I am not sure. How large could this potential hypothetical Greater Israel be? I don't know. So I do not know about this. I will not be able to explain because I have not looked into this. I am not sure if it is even a real thing. There's plenty of these conspiracies on social media these days. A lot of people are claiming that Israel wants to seeks more territory. But has Israel ever given an official statement about this? Do you have any official document about this? If there is no official statement, if there are no official documents of any kind, then it's just mere speculation, right? It's just mere speculation. Like there are people in India who want Akhand Bharat. But is Akhand Bharat an official position of the government of India? Has the government of India ever put out any document that confirms that we seek to expand our territories? The government of India has never made this any kind of official position. And that's why I would say that this concept of Akhand Bharat, it is not an official position of the government of India. It is merely the dream of many Indians. Similarly, such a thing could be the dream of many Israelis. I don't know about that. I'm speculating maybe many Israelis want something like this. What are the contours of Greater Israel? What territories do they want as part of Greater Israel? If it is a thing, I don't know. So my explanation is going to be that this is not an official position of the government of Israel, just like Akhand Bharat is not an official position of the government of India. And whatever is being spoken about, it is mere speculation. That is all I can say. Beyond that, I don't know anything else. Biju Saika says, we don't have any Chinese diaspora. Then how Chinese cuisine came to India and mixed India? Who says we don't have Chinese diaspora? India has a Chinese diaspora. Of course, India has a Chinese diaspora. Come on. Have you heard of the actor, singer Mayang Chang? Who is Mayang Chang? He's an Indian actor and television host. Okay. He's a third generation Indian Chinese with roots in China's Hubei province. Who are the Indian Chinese people? Communities of Han Chinese, not Tibetan, Han Chinese origin, permanent communities descended from immigrants and refugees from China. They came during British colonial rule, the British occupation of India. So we have a Chinese diaspora in India. Some of them live in Kolkata, some of them live in other major cities in India. And I think the very famous dish called Manchurian chicken or whatever it is called, was invented by one of these Indians of Chinese origin. It has nothing to do with Manchuria. It is not a Chinese dish, but it's today a very popular Indo-Chinese dish, right? So we have a Chinese diaspora in India. And I think it is they who introduced this Chinese cuisine, which has become an Indo-Chinese cuisine, which is different from mainstream regular Chinese cuisine, but maybe more popular than than authentic Chinese cuisine, right? So, why no other mixture like Indo-Chinese food has succeeded? Well, Chinese food is great. Chinese cuisine is great. And if you combine that with Indian spices and flavors and all, it becomes even more interesting. And that's why it's successful. I suppose if you try to create Indo-French food, it may be successful. I mean, French cuisine, if you add Indian spices to it, I think it will be good. It could be good, perhaps. Nobody's ever tried, I suppose. Yeah. I'm sure many other fusion experiments will succeed. We have something called East African food, which is food of East Africa, which is very heavily influenced by India. So they use all kinds of Indian spices. That's again fusion cuisine. I suppose all kinds of fusion cuisines could succeed, but for some reason, Indo-Chinese has been the most successful. I'm not sure exactly why it's the only one that's so successful. But yeah. EKS Baga says, check Russian oligarch Oleg post in Venezuela, please. Oleg who? Oleg is the first name. There are millions of Olegs in the world. What's Oleg's surname? Okay, let me see. Who is this Russian oligarch Oleg? Russian oligarch Oleg. Who is that? Oleg Deripaska? Oleg Tinkov? Look, I don't know which one is it. Oleg Deripaska, is it? Let's see. Oleg Deripaska. Look, if you want me to do something, just give me the proper the details, right? Think of. Does he have a Twitter? He's got a YouTube. Oleg Deripaska has Instagram. You're talking about Instagram, you're talking about Twitter, you're talking about Facebook. Okay, the instructions are unclear, the directions are not clear. I will not be able to. I'm not going to go on a wild goose chase over here, right? You want me to do something, I'll be happy to do it, but give me the details. Oleg what? What's his full name? That much you can give me, yes? Is that too much to ask? Seriously, come on. Please help me out here. Please help me out. Aries Manticore says a global short circuit is being enforced on the PC industry due to AI race. Price of RAM is increasing daily. This will continue for the next decade. What opportunity does it give India and why? Look, why is the price of RAM shooting up? Because there's a bunch of idiots on Twitter, on X, who are saying, put a bikini on this, put a bikini on that. And that's why all the computing power is being used up for putting bikinis on people's images. Anyway, that's what it is. So the price of RAM is shooting up. It's increasing, no question. And that's why the prices of PCs is gonna go up proportionately. And this is gonna continue. What opportunity does it give India and why? Does India manufacture RAM? If India manufactures RAM, it will be good for India. It will give India higher revenue. Does India manufacture RAM chips? I'm not sure we do. Let me see. Does India? I don't think we do. Does India manufacture RAM chips? I don't think so. Okay, India is just beginning to manufacture RAM chips. Sahasra Semiconductors, micro SDs, late 2023, semiconductor mission, etc. Micro SD cards, memory chips, micro SD cards. I'm talking about RAM over here. RAM. Memory chips and RAM. Can micro SD cards be used for RAM? Okay, I'm not really sure about that. Can micro SD cards can SD cards be used for RAM? No, you can't. So what is this answer like? So it doesn't look like we are manufacturing RAM chips. Micro SD cards are not RAM chips. You can use SD to augment your RAM potentially through using some software, but it's not exactly a RAM chip, right? Random access memory. So look, it will be an opportunity for India if India becomes a player in the RAM game, if India starts manufacturing high quality RAM chips. Typically you have Seagate and Transcend and Nvidia, etc. If you want RAM, if you want to buy RAM chips and you want to insert them into your laptop by opening up the backside and doing that, if you want to augment your RAM, you can buy RAM chips from reasonably expensive but not too expensive. But India is not in the game. So if India gets into the game and starts manufacturing high quality RAM chips that are in demand in the world, then it will be good for India. Aditya Raghul says, how did 21-year-old Muhammad conquer Constantinople, defeat Lord the Impaler? It said that he fulfilled one of the prophecies of Islam. One of the prophecies of Islam is that some Islamic person will conquer the red apple. The red apple was Constantinople. Now, how did he conquer Constantinople? That's a long story, my dear friend. How can I explain over here? People make like seven episode movie TV series about that. How he conquered Constantinople. That's a long story. He needed an army for that. They had to resort to all kinds of ingenious tricks. They had to carry ships overland into the golden horn, right? Across the bridge. No, not the bridge, the golden horn, they call it. It's a long story. They needed gigantic cannons. I think they employed a traitor to make cannons for them. A Venetian or Christian traitor who was a manufacturer of cannons, and he made gigantic cannons. There was one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle was that the Byzantines had blockaded. Let's go to the map. They had shut off access to the Golden Horn or something. So that's why they had to carry ships overland. We're talking about Istanbul, which is Constantinople, and we're talking about the Golden Horn. Okay, so you have two bridges here. Go away. Galata and whatever this is. So this region was blockaded so that the Turks could not enter into the Golden Horn. So the Turks, what they did was that they carried ships. At that time, there was forest over here. Okay, this was all forest. So they carried ships over land into the Golden Horn. And that created huge problems for the defenders of Constantinople. And eventually they had to resort to heavy cannon fusillades, cannon attacks on the walls, on the fortified walls. And eventually, after a long siege, the walls broke and they were able to enter Constantinople and massacre everybody and so on. Long story. Can't explain in like 2 minutes. Bhaskar Gupta says, minimum requirement to say two countries are at war. Minimum requirement to say that two countries are at war. Well, it's an interesting question. What's the minimum threshold? A kinetic action, I would say. A prolonged kinetic action. I mean, you can have an unstable border where you have occasional, maybe daily firing against each other, but the kinetic action, which is that sort of thing, needs to extend beyond just the border. It needs to go beyond that, and it should be a prolonged affair, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the requirements are. I mean, some people would argue that the 3-day war that we had, Operation Sindoor, doesn't entirely fulfill the criteria of being an actual war. I'm not sure what the minimum criteria are. I consider it to have been a 3-day war, an aerial war. The navies were not involved, the infantries were not involved, but there was an aerial war, mainly missiles, right? So I'm not sure what the exact, I'm not sure if criteria even exist. I think eventually, once something happens or once something has ended, if there is a consensus that it was a war, then it's a war. But I would say there needs to be kinetic action that is deeper, not just shallow at the borders, and should be prolonged and should be serious, like serious targets. Then maybe it's war. Monish Sabrinath says, what can the government of India do to reducing the cost of living, especially in housing, groceries, education, and health? Housing, groceries, education, health. Well, I would say, first of all, look, this is an idealistic position I'm taking over here, okay? But according to me, in a civilized society, if the government is taking taxes from the citizens, then education and healthcare should be entirely free. Tax the citizens. I'm not saying give it for free. Tax the citizens and use the taxpayer money for giving free education and healthcare if you want to be called a civilized society. Because that's what we always had in free India before India came under foreign occupation. Even during the British Raj, you had Indian princely states that gave free education and healthcare. Do you know that? Even after independence for a year or two, you had some princely states, former princely states in India, that still gave free education and healthcare. And high quality, not garbage like we have today. So it can be done, very easily done, with the kind of taxation system that we have. When it comes to housing, groceries, etc., 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 well, I would say if you want to reduce the cost of everything, destroy corruption. All the costs will come down. Start with that. Then we'll talk about other stuff. Destroy, annihilate corruption. The cost of everything will come down. That's what the GUI can do. Indian Navy says Rajat has 24 MH-60R. Is that enough? What's the MH? Is it the Chinook? Is it the American Chinook? Let's find out. MH-60R. MH60R. What's a Sikorsky Seahawk? Seahawk. I think it's a liability. Is it enough? I think it's a liability. It's an American helicopter. An American helicopter will come with all kinds of fantastic things that we will not be aware of. It will have back doors, it will have kill switches. And even if we ignore the back doors and kill switches, you will need spare parts. The spare parts will have to come from the US. And the US can deny it to you whenever they feel like. I think these purchases that we have made from the Americans are all liabilities. Big liabilities. We do need naval helicopters. I'm not sure how many we need. 24. A country like India, the size of a subcontinent, we have 24. Do you think it's enough? We need more, way more, but not these. We need to have our own helicopters. Why can't we design and manufacture our own? Why can't we? Fast Snail says, what happens to unused Russian arms? Why unused? Now, can you please explain which unused Russian arms? Are you talking about Ukraine? Are you talking about Venezuela? Are you talking about India? What are you talking about? Why don't people give me context? We have Russian arms in India. They are not unused. If you're talking about Ukraine, if you're talking about Venezuela, they have Russian weapons. Those were not used, right? When the Americans invaded yesterday. Why were they unused? Because the Americans bribed the key people in the government and the military to not use these things. What happens to them now? Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Maybe the Americans will take them, examine them, dismantle them, reverse engineer them, try to gather all the secrets. It won't really work because these will be export versions of whatever, but we'll see. Biju Saikia says, do you think importance of romance is exaggerated in pop culture? I mean, love life is important, but it should not be anyone's top priority. I agree. It's obviously love is important, romance is important in life. But at the end of the day, it's not the central factor in life. But when you are 16 or 17 years old and your hormones are raging, that's all you can think of. And that's why the movies are all geared towards these young, gullible people. Everyone's been there. Yeah. So you want people to buy your tickets and you want them to be inflamed with ideas. And that's why these movies are typically geared towards young people who are still awash in hormones and they'll like be all. So pop culture obviously exaggerates romance and all that. Romance is important, but it's not the central thing in life. It's not like it should be the top priority for people in life. Top priority in life, life is a balanced thing. There's a place for everything. Everything should be in the right place, in the right proportions at the same time. But yeah, pop media will obviously exaggerate things. Pop culture to make money. It's all about making money, right? Abirup Sarkar says, will Venezuela intervention be a pushback against the de-dollarization in oil? Any idea how much it may impact oil deals made in Chinese yuan? Of course, this is going to bolster the US dollar, the strength of the US dollar. See, like I've said many times, why is the US dollar the predominant currency in the world? It was decided in 1944 in the Bretton Woods Conference to make the US dollar the world's reserve currency. At that time, the US dollar was pegged to the price of gold. Then Richard Nixon unpegged it from the price of gold. It became a free floating fiat currency, just paper. Then it was pegged to the price of petroleum. So it became the petrodollar. And the US enforced the petrodollar status through its military might, which means that across the world, if you wanted to buy petroleum, you could only pay in US dollars. And people tried to change that. Saddam Hussein tried to change that. He was taken out. Muammar Gaddafi tried to change that. He was taken out. Nicolas Maduro tried to do that. He has been taken out. So the petrodollar status, the world's reserve currency status of the US dollar is enforced through military might, through force. And Venezuela accounts for about 20% of the world's proven oil reserves. Now, all of that oil, whenever it is sold in whatever quantity, at whatever number of barrels per year, it will all be sold in US dollars only now. So that strengthens the reserve currency status of the US dollar, right? There will be no more Venezuelan oil sold in Chinese yuan or anything else. So yeah, it how will it impact oil deals in made in Chinese yuan? Well, other oil from other countries, it may still perhaps on occasion be sold in Chinese yuan, but this 20%, no chance now. AKS Bagga says, how come the US has 34% of global wealth with only 4% global population, while Russia with 75 trillion worth of resources has less than one? Why is it so hard to imagine? They have 4% of the global population, but they have a huge continent that they control. They control North America and South America entirely now. They project power across the entire world. The percentage of your population doesn't matter. The amount of hard power you have is what matters. You see, you may be 10,000 people, but if you control the entire world, then you will have not 33%, but the 100% of the world's wealth, or you will control it directly or indirectly. So the amount of the percentage of the global wealth you control is not a factor of the percentage of the world's population you account for. It's a factor of how much hard power you have. Okay? So that's what it is. It's a function of your hard power. It depends on your hard power. It doesn't depend on your population. The UK was a tiny little island. It still is. But they controlled the entire world essentially. They did not even have 4%. They did not even have 1% of the world's population. And still they controlled the entire world and had much of the wealth. So it is all dependent on your hard power. It has nothing to do with your population. Aries Manticore says, what kind of short but continuous kinetic action could Russia take to cripple Kiev after the recent assassination attempt? What could China do now that Venezuela is under US control for its energy interests? Look, let's talk about China first. Venezuela, the past 5 years, it has exported petroleum, right? Between 65 to 80% of Venezuela's petroleum exports went to China. But when you look at China's oil imports, Venezuela accounted for maybe 3 or 4% only of China's oil imports. So now that this is under US control, China will not get the 3-4% from Venezuela, which is fine. It doesn't make too much of a difference to China. China imports 15 to 20% of its oil from Saudi Arabia. It imports another 15 to 20% of its oil from Russia. Then you have nations like Iraq, Angola, blah, 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 from which it imports the rest of the oil. So China has a bunch of nations from which it imports oil, and this, if Venezuelan oil no longer reaches China, it will not make too much of a difference to China. Okay? So energy interests, China will be able to look into it. If Iran is taken out, that could be a big dent to China's oil imports. We'll see about that. Now, what kind of short but continuous? Short but continuous. If it is short, how is it continuous? Short is done. But how can it be short and continuous at the same time? So what kind of kinetic action could Russia take to cripple Kiev after the recent assassination attempt? All kinds of stuff. I will not go into it. Russia has so many options. If it wants, it can flatten Kiev tomorrow morning. It can entirely flatten Kiev tomorrow morning if it wants. Obviously, it will not want to do that. It's got all kinds of options. Okay, Parthenon says UN replacement migration paper says Russia needs millions of immigrants. What is Russia planning and what are the skilled people they need right now ASAP? Look, when the UN writes about Russia, we should be careful not to believe it in its entirety. The UN is controlled by the United States mainly. And the US is anti-Russia, right? We know that. The US regards Russia as an adversary. So if the UN writes about Russia, it's going to write things that are going to be kind of biased. But assuming that what the UN has written is correct, that Russia needs millions of immigrants, what is Russia planning to do about this? I suppose Russia could import immigrants from India. So India has one thing in surplus, which is people. So Russia could import skilled workers, laborers from India on a temporary basis, not on a permanent basis. You work for 5 years and go back, that sort of thing. Earn some money, earn good money, work here, give us your skills, your labor, and go back, that sort of thing they could do. So Russia will be way happier importing Indian skilled labor compared to Chinese skilled labor. Russia doesn't trust the Chinese. Okay, so one easy solution for Russia is to import Indian skilled labor on an ongoing basis. Maybe give 5-year visas. After 5 years, you go back. In those 5 years, you earn good money. So it's win-win, right? You don't settle down permanently, but you work for 5 years, that sort of thing. So that's an easy solution for Russia. Easy. It can be implemented tomorrow morning. Just get on the phone with Mr. Modi, Mr. Putin, discuss this, work out the modalities, can be implemented rapidly. So it's not going to be a big problem for Russia. Okay? Indians are trustworthy. Indians will not spy for the West. Indians have skills. Indians are plentiful. So, yeah, so that's an easy solution for Russia. Rajat says, can we do Venezuela and Bangladesh for Yunus to put BNP in power? No. India can't do it. India can't do it. India is not powerful enough. There is another nation which is, see, in the Indian subcontinent, there is another nation other than India which is more powerful than India. That nation is the United States. The US is not physically in the Indian subcontinent, but the US has power projection capabilities, not just military, but economic. And those capabilities are so powerful that India can't do a thing in Bangladesh right now. If India tries something, India can actually go tomorrow morning and change the regime in Bangladesh. We can do it. But then the consequences will be terrible. The Americans will impose sanctions and cripple India's economy. So we can't do it. Okay, Swapnil Mishra says, why did Venezuela and Argentina decline economically? So Argentina was never, when was Argentina a great economy? I think 100 years ago. Maybe the 1910s, 1920s. At that time, Argentina was prosperous. Buenos Aires was like the Paris of the Americas and that sort of thing. Then what happened? I suppose socialism happened in Argentina. You had Perón, right? What was his name? Argentina Perón. He was a socialist. Juan Perón. So, yeah, 1946 to 55. So you had these people. Juan Perón was a socialist. If I remember correctly, he was a Peronism, right? Peronism, Juan Perón, social justice, economic independence, etc. Nationalism, inclusive ethno-nationalism. Is it socialistic, anti-communist, progressive, conservative, female Peronist? Is it a socialism? Yeah, national form of socialism. So you had people like Perón, etc., who were more ideology driven than driven by practical ideas. And because of these things, Argentina declined over time. The specifics, the mechanics and statics of it, I won't be able to explain in great detail. But yeah, you had the wrong leaders who took Argentina down the wrong path and ruined Argentina slowly, gradually, economically. Venezuela. How did Venezuela decline economically? You will be told that Venezuela is in terrible economic shape because of people like Maduro who have ruined the economy. They don't know how to run the economy. It's all socialism. It's all communism. These commies have ruined the country economically. The truth, my friends, is that Venezuela's economy has been ruined by American sanctions, by Western sanctions. When you impose 1 million sanctions on the country and you cut the country's economy off from the rest of the world, you don't allow them to trade with the world. Venezuela in the 2010s accounted for 10 to 12% of India's oil imports. In 2020, the Americans put a complete halt to that. And India was not allowed to import even one drop of Venezuelan oil after that. That's just one example of what was into Venezuela. Similarly, Venezuela would have been exporting oil to so many other countries. All of that was stopped. And not just that, but all kinds of other sanctions were imposed on Venezuela, which crippled the Venezuelan economy. So the major reason why Venezuela's economy was crippled is because the West, led by the US, imposed sanctions on Venezuela. That is the truth. It's not communism or socialism that destroyed Venezuela's economy. It is Western sanctions that destroyed Venezuela's economy. Ares Manticore says, why can't we create a unique composite stealth materials-based submarine along with a stealth swarm of underwater drones? What could its battlefield utility be? How would it fare against regular subs? Look, you don't need stealth materials in submarines. You can use regular hulls, steel hulls. What you need is a silent engine. An engine can never be 100% silent, okay? There's going to be some noise, but you have to reduce the acoustic signature as far as possible. And you have to reduce is it possible to reduce the magnetic signature? Because you have aircraft with magnetic anomaly detectors, those little tail protuberances that scan the ocean for magnetic anomalies. So what you have to do, forget about that. You have to make the sub as silent as possible. You don't need stealth materials. You don't use radar to hunt for submarines, right? Stealth materials and the stealth taping technology is relevant when it comes to radars in the air. So it is relevant for aircraft. For submarines, you can use regular steel hulls, but you have to make it as silent as possible. Okay, so you can use air-independent propulsion. You can use advanced nuclear reactors. You can use propellers with silent characteristics, etc. That's what you do. Okay, so yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to work on the submarines. We need to iteratively produce better and better submarines. We should look for these technologies like air-independent propulsion and so on. Even if you're using diesel electric submarines, maybe we can incorporate techniques and technologies that will make it silent as silent as possible. That's what we do. Now, what about the swarm of underwater drones? Yeah, we should have those things. I think underwater drones are underwater submersible vehicles are the technology is being worked on in India. Obviously, we will not advertise that. We will not shout from the rooftops, we are doing this. We'll keep quiet about that. But I suppose, from whatever I've heard, we are kind of working on those things. Kiran More says India just tested a Ramjet artillery shell. Let's look into that. Okay, India Ramjet artillery shell. India Ramjet artillery. Let's see. India, first in the world, India to deploy Ramjet-powered shells for 155mm guns. Let's see. Indian Army will be the first to use Ramjet-powered 155mm artillery shells. First Army to be. It will increase the range by 30 to 50% while retaining the lethality. Development of rockets with longer ranges. 155mm shells. Ramjet shells. How does that work? That's really interesting. Ramjet assisted 155mm artillery shell. Significant progress. This was January 2. This is yesterday. Okay, I'm sure the technology can win. So that's interesting. A Ramjet powered or Ramjet assisted artillery shell. Interesting. A Ramjet is essentially a jet engine, a supersonic. No, not a supersonic jet, a jet engine. Yeah, and then you have supersonic combustion ramjets, which are called scramjets. Interesting. I'll follow that up. Okay. Chintya Anand says only Russia and the US are powers that have full set of mechanical replacements like steam engines and warships in case of EMP attack. You got to have these things. The Americans have these ancient as in maybe Second World War era warships that are in mothballs, but these warships can be redeployed at reasonably short notice. And these warships are powered by steam engines and so on. So in case you have an electromagnetic pulse kind of attack that fries all the modern electronics of advanced modern warships, then you can bring out those ancient warships and still have a navy that you can deploy in some numbers at least. And the Russians also possibly have this. What about India? I think India must have scrapped all the old warships. India has probably scrapped all the old warships and broken them down for scrap. So India won't have it. Yeah. Euler01 says, is US playing the game right or is it making blunders? I think the US is playing the game right. The US is using its hard power to align all the pieces on the chessboard in the right order, the order that is most beneficial to it. See, what's the point of having hard power if you don't use it? Power exists to be used. If you don't use it, power is useless, worthless. So the US has the power and it takes the action that needs to be taken. It doesn't shy away from that. So it's taken Venezuela. We'll see what it does next. The US is playing the game right. It has put Russia and China on the back foot. They have been caught off guard. All they have been able to do is make statements and condemn what the US has done. But what action have they taken? Nothing. It shows how powerful the US is and how comparatively powerless Russia and China are. The US is playing the game right as of now. Aries Manticore says Trump said the US military had a certain ability to turn off VZ's power grid. What do you think it is? What is VZ? Venezuela's power grid. Okay. What do you think it is? Advanced weaponry play, just a kind of dangerous weapon still hidden from public? I think the US government's ability to turn off the power grid of Venezuela, it's not advanced technology. It's cash. Dollars. Pay the right people, they'll switch it off. Why do you need super advanced technology when you can just pay people to do things? You can just pay people, you can just bribe people to do what you want them to do. As simple as that. You have familia. You will give green card to your familia. Your wife, your children, bring them to the US. We give them good house, education. We give you $1 million in bank account. Switch off the grid. Done. Done deal. ICMB says, just saying, James pays in INR, so he lives in India. You say James is an advanced player. James is an advanced player. He may pay in INR. Maybe he has a credit card or a PayPal account that can pay in INR. You see? You have to cover your tracks. Never show people, let people know who you really are. Hide your tracks, cover your tracks. I think James plays the game really well. Pratardana says, early Christians debated rebirth, but church declared them heretics and Christian philosophy stopped evolving and is stuck with the original sin of Adam. Yes, it is said that the original gospels or whatever that was, they did have the concept of reincarnation. Maybe the Nag Hammadi library, which is an unedited set of Christian texts, maybe that has the concept of reincarnation. See, there was something called the Council of Nicaea. When was it held? I think 300, 400 AD, somewhere around that. Council of Nicaea. 325 AD, was it? 325 AD. Okay, Constantine won. And in this council, they decided to edit the Christian texts and expunge any mentions of reincarnation, etc., from Christian texts in order to control the people early. But what about the Nag Hammadi library? Let's check that out. Nag Hammadi library. Come on, library. So, yeah, Gnostic Gospels, right? Discovered in 1945, 2nd to 4th centuries. And these were unedited documents that Constantine was not able to edit, obviously. And do we have reincarnation in that? Let me see. Does it have the concept reincarnation? Did it have anything? Yeah, it extensively discusses reincarnation. You see? So this was a very Hinduism-like concept that you had in Christianity. Before Constantine and his minions, they expunged it from the Christian Gospels, from the Christian texts. So original or early Christianity, it believed in the concept of reincarnation or the transmigration of souls. And once your soul transmigrates, you forget the previous births and so on. That concept is very similar to what you have in Hinduism and in Dharmic religions. But then all of that was removed so that people would believe that there's only one life and everything goes to the church. So the church has complete power and control over not just this life of yours, but even the afterlife, whether you go to heaven or hell. If there is reincarnation, there is no heaven or hell. Please understand that. So these artificial concepts were then inserted into Christianity as a consequence of the Council of Nicaea. UMXG Lol Haha says, why do we idol worship why Abrahamics don't? Why do we idol worship while Abrahamics don't? Why do we do it? I think most cultures have made idols of their gods. Why did the Abrahamics say that it is not good? I have no idea. Look, yeah, I'm not really sure why the Abrahamics. See, the Abrahamic religions are newer religions. All the older religions had idols. So the question actually is, why did the Abrahamics decide that idols are bad? And then why did they proceed to break idols all over the world and desecrate idols all over the world? So I'm not sure. Look, I am not an expert in Abrahamism. In polytheism, polytheistic practices were found all across the world, including in West Asia, and all these practices have idols. So when you conceive of some kind of deity, you want some physical representation of that you can focus your mind on, and that is a representation of what you believe in. And that makes sense. So why no idols? I have no idea. King Ritwik says, speak in Hindi Sir, speak Hindi in other channels, but not here. Why? Well, this is an English language channel. I believe that what I have to say is kind of somewhat important-ish. And I want this to be understood across the world. That's why I speak in English. So let me give you an example. We know there is a bad situation happening in Manipur right now. Right? Now, the people of Manipur, they discuss this stuff, what's happening on YouTube, but they speak in the Manipuri language. They have so much information about the history and what's happening, but they discuss everything in the Manipuri language. So the rest of India has no idea what's happening in Manipur, even though it's so important. Now, if I start speaking Hindi, then only some Indians will be able to understand what I'm saying. The rest of the world will have no idea what I have to say. I want whatever I'm saying to go out to the entire world. I think it's important it does. Right now, the hegemonic language across the world is the language of the Anglo-Saxons. It is what it is. So I'm going to use that language to put forth India's perspective, India's opinion in front of the world. That's why I speak in English over here on my channel. When I go to other channels, the hosts may prefer to speak in Hindi because their channels are primarily in Hindi. In that case, I will respect that channel's language preference. I'll speak in Hindi. But it's not like I only speak in Hindi in other channels. There are many channels on which I will go and speak in English. So that's the deal. UMXG Lolhaha says, what is the proof of Persians being Vedic Indians? See, you will not find this proof in your textbooks. Your textbooks will not say that Persians are of Indian origin, of Vedic origin. Your teachers will say that this is a conspiracy theory. Okay? Progress is made by questioning the official consensus narrative. Now, what's the proof? There is plenty of circumstantial evidence. And if you put all those threads together, it becomes clear that the Persians were of Vedic origin. Let me give you one example. Okay. Aryan invasion myth. So, if you go here, this is just one piece of evidence. This is not the only evidence, by the way. Where do we have it? See, look here. See, these are the names, non-Hellenized names of ancient Persian kings. Hakshamanish, Aryaramna, Uvakshatra, Kurush Vajraka, Kambuja, Vishtaspa, Darayavahus, Kshayarsha, Artakshatra. These are the names of ancient Persian kings from the Achaemenid dynasty. Clearly Sanskrit names. Now, another one. Okay. Talagiri. Talagiri, 10 kings. Okay, let's see here. Battle of the 10 Kings. So we have the names of the various clans that fought and were defeated. The western opponents of Sudas. So we have the Simus, the Brigus, the Drihus, the Alinas, the Paktas, the Vishanins, Balanas, etc. Who else do we have? More western opponents. The Pishachin, the Vishanin, Simu, Dasa, Parshu, Parshva. You see the Parshva clan. They went westwards. And they founded the region of Persia. So if you look at all these pieces of evidence, you put them together, it becomes very clear that the Persians are descendants of one of the clans, the Parshva clans, that was defeated in the Battle of the 10 Kings. And you can see all the pieces of evidence all line up. But if you want one piece of proof, you won't have it. And none of this is accepted by your mainstream Darbari historians. Okay? But if you have a mind that works, and if you can follow the strands of logic, then you can see the truth. The problem is that the proof is very complex. There are 50 different pieces of evidence from different disciplines and domains. And you have to tie all the threads in together. It's very complex. And most people don't have the patience to follow the strands together. You will say, where is the proof? You want one piece of proof. If I don't show it, then you will say you are lying, or you have no idea what you're talking about. This is the problem. Okay. One more myth Indians believe in, sir, please answer. Well, one myth Indians believe in is that the Persians are a foreign clan, a foreign country, no connection to India. That's a myth most Indians believe. And they'll say, where is the proof when you claim that Persians are of Vedic origin? That's another myth, you see. Style in Net says, what was the culture in Eastern India? What was the culture in Eastern India in parts like Bihar, Bengal at the times of the Vedic ages? Since this region was beyond the borders of the core Vedic lands were the adversaries. Look, we have very little evidence from the Vedic times. Whatever evidence we have is from the text of the Vedic times, the Vedas. The oldest, obviously, is the Rig Veda. And then you have evidence from other texts like the Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc. What was the culture like in Eastern India? We don't quite know for sure. The only text that survives is from the oldest times, is the Rig Veda. And whatever is recorded in the Rig Veda is what we know of ancient India from that time. So I'm not sure what the culture was like. Obviously, we had people all across India. But the Rig Veda was most likely written closer to 6000 BC than to 2000 BC. So if a text is written, let's say 5000 BC, that's 7000 years before today. The world was a very different place. The subcontinent was a very different place at the time. Obviously, you will have people all across the place. But what was the culture like in other parts of the subcontinent? Not the core Vedic region, which is the Ganga, Yamuna Valley. I'm not sure. Not very sure. Obviously, you're right. You're saying that this region was beyond the borders of the core Vedic lands. Where these people adversaries is not likely. See, if you are living 1000 kilometers away from the core Vedic lands, you may never meet each other in your lifetimes or in 5 generations. Because those days, unless you did the Ashwamedh Yagna or something, nobody will travel that far. Unless you are going on pilgrimage or whatever. So we're not quite sure. uh, when it comes to the eastern lands like Bengal, for example, or the Magad region, Bihar, uh, you could get some information from archaeological research, but very little archaeological research has been done. For example, in Bengal, the oldest archaeological sites are what? Chandraketugarh, which is about 2,500 years before today or something. So pretty recent stuff. For India, 2,500 years is pretty recent, right? Because we are talking about what happened 7,000 years ago. So if we do proper archaeological work, you will find archaeological evidence and artifacts which will paint a better and richer picture of what life was like in Eastern India. As of now, the ASI is not bothered to do these things, so we don't quite know. And textually, we only have the Rig Veda, which describes the Vedic lifestyle. So don't have the answer right now, sadly. Aries Manticore says Minnesota's forced of Somalian migrants in the billion-dollar scams they are currently committing against US citizens, while the state is enabling them and the federal government is strangely silent. Minnesota's forced of Somalian migrants. What does it mean? We know there are Somalian migrants in Minnesota, and apparently they are billion-dollar scams. And obviously the scams victimize the legal citizens of the US, of course, and the state of Minnesota is enabling them. Yes. The federal government is strangely silent. I'm not sure the federal government is entirely silent. They are not entirely silent on social media, but they're not really taking any action against what's happening, which is strange. The West has weaponized migration against itself, right? The West has decided at some point in time, we're gonna import people from certain parts of the world, people from certain regions of the world who have certain cultures only. We're gonna hate on the Indians and the Hindus, but we're gonna bring in people from certain parts of Africa and who have certain specific religions, and we're gonna empower them. I don't know what the deal is, but clearly the West seems to be in the process of digging its own grave. So yeah, okay, do it. Who am I to say anything? Teja Reddy says key differences: Bay of Bengal versus Arabian Sea. So the Bay of Bengal is the Kalinga Mahasagar. The Arabian Sea is actually the Sea of Saurashtra. That's two key differences. That's one key difference already. Sea of Saurashtra, Kalinga Sagar, Kalinga Mahasagar, whatever. Secondly, the Sea of Saurashtra is in the west coast of India. And the Kalinga Sagar is on the east coast of India. That's another key difference. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, look at the map here. KEP, no question, but okay. Thank you very much, sir. KEP, merci beaucoup. Aries Manticore says Christianity only evolved into multiple variants in the US, but remained only 3 in Europe. It seems interesting. Why so? Interesting. So in Europe, you have Protestantism, you have Catholicism, and you have the Orthodox Church, which the Orthodox Christianity, which you will find in the Balkan region, in Greece, also in Russia. In Russia, you have Orthodox Christianity, yes? In Greece also. Bulgaria, possibly Bulgaria also. So the Balkan region in Russia, that's where you have Orthodox Christianity. You have Protestantism in Germany, in England, etc. Other parts of Europe. France also, the Huguenots, etc. And you have Catholicism. 3 variants of Christianity. In the US, you have the Baptists, the Anabaptists, and God knows what. Why is it so? I'm not really sure. It's interesting for sure. But why has it evolved in this manner very differently in the US? I haven't studied this thus far. So I can't really say, but it's interesting for sure. It probably has something to do with the special characteristics of the US as a nation, which is very different from the European nations, even though it's composed of European invaders. But they found this entire gigantic, vast continent to run rampage in, and they evolved very differently from the rest of the Europeans, and maybe that gave rise to different branches of Christianity. But I haven't studied this in detail, so can't say for sure. UMXG Lolha says pasta is actually Indian. Why call Italian? How so? How is pasta? how is how is pasta Indian? Is pizza also Indian? Pasta, its origins are in China. There was no pasta in Italy in Italy before Marco Polo came back from China. And Marco Polo brought noodles from China, and he introduced those in Italy. And the Italians then took it forward and made it their own thing, and they called it pasta. So pasta is Italian, okay? It's not Indian. KEP says, why do people say it's Indian nationalism when Indians claim it, but when Europeans claim it, people just accept it as fact? Because the world is Eurocentric. The past 500 years, the Europeans have ruled the world. And they have put forth their narrative and their claims as the gospel truth. And if anyone challenges that, that is portrayed as nationalism or propaganda or conspiracy theories. And because of the European predominance over the past 5 centuries, even non-European people have been brainwashed into believing that everything the Europeans say is right and everything anyone else says is wrong. So many Indians are also like that, right? Mentally colonized. If an Indian person says something, no, must be wrong. If a white person says the same thing, yes, obviously it's true, right? And in India, we have this practice that if an Indian person does some great achievement, we'll ignore it. But if that Indian person gets an award from the West, then the Indian government will give a Padma Shri or something to the Indian person, but only after they get an award from the West. So that's an issue with Indians, right? Mental colonization, inferiority complex, mental slave mentality that permeates all levels of Indian society, the bottom to top. Rajat says, will we ever know what happened before 10 raised to minus 32 seconds? Will we ever know? Well, we can kind of try and theorize what may have happened based on indirect evidence. But it's all going to be theories, right? We may never know for sure what happened before 10 raised to minus 32 seconds. It's essentially the onset of inflation, isn't it? When does inflation start? The inflationary epoch starts in the very early universe. And before that, we have the pre-inflationary universe, which is the very early universe, which is fascinating, but we have absolutely next to no idea about it. So we may never see. To know something, to actually know something, you need data. Now, where do we find data about what the universe was like before 10 raised to minus 32 seconds? We should have evidence right here, because this region of space right here between my palms, this was once part of the very early universe before minus 10 raised to 32 seconds. But do I see any evidence here? So it may be perhaps impossible to know what happened before that. But the human mind is ingenious. You come up with the right theories, and if the theories make sense mathematically, if they can, resolve major intractable issues, such as reconciling the very small with the very large, for example, which is quantum gravity, then you may be able to have better insights about what the world was like before the inflationary epoch. UMXG Lolha says, Lazy Gamer says, sir is an occasional drinker. Who is Lazy Gamer, and how does Lazy Gamer know what do I do in life? Harshvardhan Jahar, thank you very much, Harshvardhan ji. Thank you. Sushant Gurjar says, when Aryan kingdoms suddenly emerged deeper in Asia, how did Indians who had lived for so many thousands of years in India acclimate to the different elevation and climate there? You see, we say that Aryan kingdoms suddenly emerged, let's say, deeper in Asia. Maybe Anatolia, for example, around 2000 BC, 1600 BC. So we imagine that 10,000 Indians boarded Boeing planes, took a flight from New Delhi and landed in Anatolia, and they came out of the plane, and suddenly they were in a very different climate, and it was so cold and they couldn't acclimate. That's what we imagine. But what actually happened is Indians traveled either on foot or by horse slowly westwards over years, perhaps decades, perhaps a couple of centuries. And when you travel slowly, you don't even realize that you have acclimated. That's how it actually works in the real world. They do not go by aircraft or helicopter. So if you're sitting in, let's say, Chennai, or you're sitting in Bangalore, you take a flight, and 4 hours later you are in Leh, and you come out of the aircraft, you are suddenly met with this shock. Very high altitude, very thin atmosphere, in very cold temperature. That's when you get a climate shock. But if you walk from Bangalore all the way to Leh, it will take you maybe a few months. By the time you reach Leh, you've acclimated already. See the difference? All right. Karan says, I never claimed it was Arabic. It was Persian and Timurid, but built much earlier. You're talking about what? You're talking about the Taj Mahal dome thing? Okay, you are saying the Indian claim is weakened. Okay, all right, sir. Good luck. Aries Manticore says, I saw a video on the Romani people by a European. It painted them terribly. And the comment section was even worse. I don't get it. What's going on? Why are they doing this to them? It's pure and simple racism. They don't like people who have non-white skin. The Romani people, they are not white. They have darker skin. Maybe dark skin like regular Indians, or light brown skin. And their facial features are Indian. The Europeans, I'm not saying all of them are racist, but it's a pretty racist society. It's a pretty racist set of societies. It's all to do with racism. If the same Romani people had white skin, they would not be treated the same way. Let me give you an example of how a Romani person was treated in Europe. Let me give you one example. You may not have heard of it. Okay, I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to search for Johann Trollmann. Johann Trollmann. This person, Johann Trollmann, was a German boxer of Romani origin. Okay, look at him here. He's here with the other German boxers. You can see his skin color is darker. He's the tallest of the lot. Okay, a Romani Indian origin boxer. You can see his skin color is different. He's the tallest of the lot. He was the best boxer in Germany in his weight class. But unfortunately, he was born in 1907, and he lived the prime of his career was during the time of the Third Reich. Okay. So Johann Trollmann, he was different from the Germans. His boxing style was different. The German boxing style was stand and fight and take the punches. Johann Trollmann had this very light, mobile style of boxing. He was very light on his feet. He moved around a lot. He would evade punches. He would not stand and take punches. And he became the German boxing champion. And then he was awarded the championship, but then he was disqualified under some pretext. And I think he was made to fight another match. And as a protest, he came to fight after covering himself in wheat flour, because he was dark-skinned. So he covered himself in wheat flour to make himself white and said, okay, now am I German enough? Can I fight now? That sort of thing. Eventually, he was sent to a concentration camp because he was of Romani origin. He was not German, despite being a German citizen. And I think he was murdered there. He was the greatest boxer in Germany. So why was he treated like this? Because of the color of his skin. There's so many examples of this. Okay, so even today, this racism is alive and well in Europe. Ayush says, sorry if I'm wrong, but many of the chief architects of Mughal mosques were designed by Persian architects. As an example, Humayun tomb designed by Mirza Ghias, who introduced double dome to India from Persia. Okay, sir. I mean, what's the argument? What are you trying to prove here? You're trying to prove that I'm wrong about something. In a previous episode, I had said that, okay, let me try and get to the bottom of what you're trying to argue here, which is okay. I am perfectly happy to accept an argument in which I'm wrong if you can demonstrate that I'm actually wrong. Now, let me see. Which one was it? Okay, what I'm doing is I'm looking at my channel. I put out these clips, right? So let's see. Let's see together. There is something about Taj Mahal or something. Where is it? Where is it? Come on. Okay, Taj Mahal isn't Islamic architecture. Here is proof. Okay, so that was the thing, right? Whether the Taj Mahal is Islamic architecture or not. So I have said it is not Islamic architecture. It is Indian and Persian architecture. And this style of this tradition of having these domes, it came mainly from India. And it also existed in the Byzantine Empire, etc. And Ayush is saying it is Persian and Turkic. Persian genius. They introduced double domes to India from Persia. So the problem is, we had incredible temples in northern India, etc., before 1000 AD. All those were destroyed. You had tremendous domed structures. All of those were destroyed. So we don't have evidence from northern India now. In southern India, you have the temple style, which is in a different shape, which emulates Mount Meru, Mount Kailash. So I can't prove, because of the lack of evidence, because of the destruction, that you had domed structures in India before 1000 AD. Can you prove that you had domed structures like this in Persia before 1000 AD or before 1000 AD? I don't think you can. My point is, this is not Islamic architecture. And I think I've made my point there. So if you're arguing about something else, my argument is that this is not Islamic architecture. I showed you on the screen. You are now making a different argument about it is Persian, it is Turkic, something else. I have said it is not Islamic architecture, and I stand by my point. You want to argue about something else? Well, you can keep arguing. It's fine. It's fine. But that is not my argument. See, when I make one point and then you argue about something else, you're arguing about a different topic. Okay. Anyway, my point is, Ayush, I am not upset with you. I'm not annoyed with you. It's difficult to have a conversation when you're not face to face. And it often seems like you're talking to each other at cross purposes. So I'm not upset or annoyed with you, but I was making a different point there. All right? Okay. Okay. Arnav Jindal says, one thing about the Holocaust always seemed odd, that no one calls the Holocaust a Christian genocide of the Jews. Isn't it the continuation of the pogroms of Jews conducted by Europeans for almost 1000 years until that point? Yeah. Isn't it odd? Isn't it odd? It is, of course, a continuation of the pogroms conducted by Europeans against Jews for 2000 years. 2000 years. No question about it. But it's not called a Christian genocide. Yeah? Isn't it odd? They will absolve themselves of all the sins. That's what they do. Vamsi says, is de-dollarization really happening? Will the recent authoritative actions by Trump catalyze de-dollarization, or will it slow down out of fear? How many years till the US power diminishes like Britain's? Is de-dollarization really happening? It's not. There are some very, 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 very intelligent people who claim de-dollarization is the only thing in the world. There are nations that seek to have an alternative world order in which the US dollar is not the primary currency. Maybe a basket of currency or something. China seeks to have a world that doesn't depend on the dollar. So does Russia. India also, it will be beneficial for us if the world is no longer dependent only on the US dollar, if the US dollar is not the hegemonic currency anymore. But are we there? Or is the process happening? The process to some extent seemed to be happening. But then now we have Venezuela. 20%. See, the US dollar is primarily hegemonic because if you want to purchase oil, you have to purchase it in US dollars. The Russians and the Chinese have been dealing in yuan, etc. But the majority of the world still purchases oil in US dollars. Now, Venezuela, which accounts for 20% of the world's proven oil resources, now all of its oil will be traded only in dollars. So this makes the dollar stronger. This actually reverses to some extent whatever little trend there was towards so-called de-dollarization. So de-dollarization is not happening. Eventually, someday, the dollar will no longer be the hegemonic and currency and the reserve currency. But that day is not soon. Right now, India is not even talking about moving beyond the US dollar. Only China and Russia are openly speaking about this. No other country is talking about this or taking any actions. You take action, you're going to be squashed by the Americans, like what they did to Venezuela. Before that, to Muammar Gaddafi. Before that, to Saddam Hussein. Whoever dares to even discuss threatening the hegemony of the US dollar, you know what happens to them. So it's only Russia and China that have the wherewithal to even speak about this. No one else can do it. So it's not happening right now. Critical thinker Yati says, apparently the Peace Prize was given to a puppet to make him famous locally, then to give him power after invasion. Next, Peace Prize from Cuba or Iran, or to Indian puppet. Maybe somebody from India. Look, in Iran, I suppose if there is an invasion of Iran and a regime change, then they will make the son of the Shah, the son of Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, they'll make him the puppet king of Iran, right? The puppet Shah of Iran. He doesn't need a Nobel Peace Prize because he's not really done anything much. There's this lady from Venezuela. What is her name? Whatever her name is. So this Venezuelan lady, her name is Maria Machado, right? Maria Machado. She was given the Peace Prize, and she has been openly speaking about selling off the country piece by piece to the Americans. The lady has no shame. Yeah, but she's not going to be the president. It's not going to work out for her. So all of this in vain for her, sadly. So the Nobel Peace Prize has no legitimacy actually. It is something that is used to create the conditions for regime change. It is used to create the consent for regime change. Cuba is not that important. The US doesn't care about invading Cuba. What's the point? There's no resources in Cuba. Yeah, so let Cuba be, they'll say. Maybe the next Peace Prize could be from Iran, if you want to give it to the Shah and then position him as the next Shah, or the son of the Shah. Or maybe somebody from India, some aspiring Zelensky from India, possibly. That could be on the cards. UMXG Lolha says, is it true that gangs really ran cities like Karachi? I don't know about Karachi. I have not studied Karachi. I have no idea. That's what they've shown in the movie, right? Durandar. But I am not aware of what the actual history has been like in Karachi. Maybe it was, but I don't know. Right. Godliness says, can you explore and explain the quality of Chinese military equipment? It seems that air defense fails every time, whether it's Pakistan or Venezuela. Look, exploring right now will take a few hours. You can't explore in 2-3 minutes. So if I were to explore and study and analyze the quality of Chinese military equipment, I will have to go through lots of sources, do a lot of deep digging, look at case studies, use studies, look at instances where Chinese equipment has been used in actual combat or battle-like situations, actual action, and see which equipment was used, whether it was export versions, whether it was older versions, new versions, what was the performance like. That's a long thing to study. And I haven't done this. So I can't really say. I mean, we know that Chinese radars were used by the Pakistanis during Operation Sindoor. And those radars did not really work. The radars were taken out. The air defense systems that the Pakistanis had of Chinese origin, those did not work. Chinese missiles that the Pakistanis fired were retrieved essentially intact by India. So they did not hit the targets. They did not explode. So it looks like the export versions of the Chinese equipment, whichever was exported to Pakistan, has performed very badly. But there's always a difference between export versions and the versions that the country actually uses. So if China manufactures a piece of equipment, it's going to manufacture a lower quality version of that, and that will be the export version. That will not have all the cutting edge characteristics that the main piece of equipment will have. If you export it, you're going to keep out all the best characteristics or features, so that if that piece of equipment that you've sold to a third country, if it falls into the hands of your adversaries, they should not be able to reverse engineer your cutting edge technology, and they should not be able to figure out how advanced your technology is. So that's why you always export inferior versions of equipment, and that obviously will not perform the way your actual original equipment performs. So based on the performance of the export versions that Pakistan had, you can't really judge the quality of the actual Chinese equipment. But what we can say for sure about Chinese military equipment is that it is not battle tested. It's not battle tested. India's stuff is battle tested. China, not quite so. So can't really say how well or badly it will perform. McLevin says, why can't the US do an inside job in Russia or China? See, to do an inside job, you need a few traitors, which means you need to cultivate assets within the higher echelons of a nation. For China, the US, to do an inside job, it will have to cultivate people in the high levels, high ranks of the Chinese Communist Party. For Russia, they will have to cultivate people high up in the inner circle of Vladimir Putin. In the 2010s, the Chinese security agency, internal security agency, the MSS, that is the Chinese version of the FBI. The MSS identified and arrested between 10 to 20 American assets in China within the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese government, the MSS, it arrested between 10 and 20 Chinese individuals who were spying on behalf of the US. If you do not believe me, let me see if I can find the evidence of that and show it to you. Let me see. New York Times. Let me give you a second. Let me show you. 1 second. Okay, so I'm making a rather remarkable claim here. So, check this out. This article is obviously behind a paywall. It's the New York Times. What's the title? Killing CIA informants, China crippled US spying operations. Let me refresh this. Okay. It's gonna go behind a paywall, so it won't work. The New York Times is behind a paywall, and I'm not subscribed to that. So, but you saw the title. If you have access to the article, do read it. So, the Chinese identified and arrested between 10 to 20, or maybe more, American assets within the Chinese Communist Party. And these were executed. They were killed. So now it is, so as a consequence, if they did a proper purge of the American spies, the traitors who were working for America, then the US doesn't have sufficient people within China to do an inside job. And I suppose something similar would have happened within Russia, but that may not be publicized. So the US tries. The Chinese caught them all, at least caught a few. What about India, you may ask? I have no idea. Mary Kane. Hi, Mary. Mary says, Google AI calls ancient Indian temples temple universities. Were temples material science engineering projects? So temples were an integral part of India's ancient education system. So temples were not merely places where people went for worship, for prayers, for spiritual needs. temples were schools. So there was a time in India before 1000 AD when you had temples all across India, across the length and breadth of India. Every time, every town, every village, every neighborhood would have a temple. Usually small temples with one person, one priest who would be in charge of the temple, the priest's family. And that locality neighborhood temple was where you would send your little kids to study, and they would be taught basic stuff, basic writing and reading skills, arithmetic, grammar, that sort of thing. Eventually, after a certain age, you would send them to a larger temple to get better education, higher education. I mean, higher than what they were receiving. So it's like, kindergarten level education, then you have primary level education, and so on. So all of this education was imparted in temples. And eventually, if you wanted higher education, you would go to places called viharas and mahaviharas, which were like colleges. And eventually, you would send people to universities, Vishwavidyalayas. So the entire education system was centered around temples. And you had some great temples, which would also function as universities. So you had a number of really, really great, magnificent temples all across northern and southern India, across India. Most of these have been destroyed now. Most of the temples in northern and western India, even eastern India, have been destroyed. The only great temples that still stand are in southern India today. And of course, you have some great temples outside of India, like Prambanan in Indonesia, like Angkor Wat in Cambodia, etc. These were also part of the same overall civilizational educational complex. So, and then you had universities that were not temples also. You had universities like Takshashila, like Nalanda, like Odantapuri, like Vikramashila, Shardapit, and so on. So lots and lots, which were not temples, where you would get very specialized education in a multitude of fields. And then you had this structure of Indian society that was divided into clans called jatis. And each jati was organized along occupational lines. So if you were the family of goldsmiths, you would be part of the jati of goldsmiths in your region, which was one community that married among each other so that the trade secrets never went out. And that way you had innumerable jatis across the country. So once your kids got the basic education, then you would pull them out of school, and then your family or your guild would impart them the specialized technical education related to your occupation. So that's how it was done in India. It was a very well-oiled system, a system that had evolved over millennia, and today it's entirely gone. It was wiped out in the 19th century by the British occupiers. So that's kind of how the system was organized. Some of the temples were indeed universities, but many universities were not temples. But all temples were educational institutions. It was a pretty organic, bottom-up kind of organic structure. All these temples and institutions were interlinked. If you wanted to send a student to a great university, your local temple educator would, I suppose, give a letter of recommendation, and the student would go, and that would be enough to get uh, entry. I'm sure there would be an entrance exam and all. So it was a very interesting system, and sadly it's gone. Firefly says, any historical mystery that intrigues you? Well, the historical mystery that intrigues me the most is the truth about the origin of the Indian people, the ancient history of India. What was life during the Vedic age? What are the true names of the great cities that we have across the Saraswati Sindhu region? The place that we call Mohenjo-daro, the place that we call Harappa. What were the original names? 5,000 years ago, they were not called Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, right? They had some actual original names that have been lost in time. What about Rakhigarhi? What about Kalibangan? What about Biranna? What are the original names of these great cities? We've lost all of these. These are massive historical mysteries. These do intrigue me. Kumar Kanishka says US capturing Maduro and taking up Venezuela's oil for themselves. Is this some sort of neo-colonization which we just witnessed in the name of freedom and democracy? This is the Monroe Doctrine in action, along with the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. So, and this is neo-imperialism, plain and simple. That's the naked reality of the world. That's the way the world has always been. So, what is this Monroe Doctrine? The Monroe Doctrine was a foreign policy formulated by the United States in 1823. This doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine, it declared that the Americas were closed henceforth to any new European colonization attempts. Okay? And any European interference in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, would be treated henceforth by the US as a hostile act against the United States. That was the Monroe Doctrine. It had to be enforced, obviously, by force, by hard power. Once you put out this statement, you have to enforce it only through hard power. So that was 1823. So the Monroe Doctrine has now been revived. And something called the Trump corollary has been added to it. What is this Trump corollary? It's a new reinterpretation of the Monroe Doctrine. It says that the US now has the right to police the Western Hemisphere. The US is going to be the super cop in the Western Hemisphere. And they're going to ensure that no extraterritorial, extra-regional powers can have any influence in the region. And even regional actors, such as drug cartels, etc., will no longer be allowed to operate. We're going to preserve US dominance and hegemony in the region, and we will be the security provider in the region. That is the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And any nation that stands against the US, they'll be dealt with in the harshest of ways. And this is the Monroe Doctrine and the Trump corollary in action, what we just saw yesterday in Venezuela. That's the deal. It is pure and simple neo-imperialism. But there's nothing wrong or right about it. That's the way the world has always operated. And now we are seeing the truth. We are seeing it in real life. It is what it is. Okay. Biju Saikia says, what's the difference between an artificial and a genuine nation? You once called Germany an artificial nation created by Bismarck. I think one day German states were bound to get united. Well, the German principalities were not united for 2,000 years. The Romans coined the term Germania Magna. That's where the word Germany comes from. They coined this term 2,000 years ago. And the Romans were interested in colonizing, and administering Germania Magna, right? And they encountered a major setback in 10 AD, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, when the Germanic tribes united under Arminius, Hermann the German, and they routed 3 Roman legions. So why didn't the German people unite then? In 10 AD, 2015 years ago, they did not unite. They all spoke Germanic languages. So from that day until 1871, Germany never united. That's 2,000 years roughly. So how can you say that one day German states were bound to be united? They would never have united unless somebody with the extraordinary force of character and will, someone like Otto von Bismarck, only someone like him could make this happen. So he artificially united a naturally disunited region. Do you understand? It was a naturally, organically disunited region. It had never, ever been united in the form of, in shape of one kingdom or empire or nation. It was always part of some empire or kingdom, but never a German empire or kingdom. And that's why I say it's an artificial nation. In the case of India, it's organically one unified thing. It has on multiple occasions been united under one single empire. And it's always been one civilization. So that's the difference between India and Germany. So what's the difference between an artificial and a genuine nation? When you create a territory that organically doesn't exist as a united whole, that's an artificial nation. Pakistan. Has a nation called Pakistan ever existed? I mean, the region has always existed. It's a geographical region. But has any kingdom or empire ever taken that shape and form with that culture and religion? No, it's entirely artificial. It's entirely artificial. It took external forces to do this. So that's an artificial nation. A genuine nation is something that has always existed in some shape or form. Maybe formerly it was a kingdom or an empire, but now it's a nation state. So that's a genuine thing. Okay, Sankar Chilikuri says scientific works, mathematics, physics, medicine were in Sanskrit in ancient India. No matter what Prakrit language at home, why abandoned it even after independence? What is the question? You had scientific works, mathematics, physics, medicine, etc. in Sanskrit. No question about it. We have the texts. Mathematical texts, astronomical observations, physical laws. You have pharmacology, you have toxicology, you have botany, you have zoology, you have all kinds of stuff. We had that in ancient India. No question about it. Why abandoned it even after independence? You see, this was not abandoned. The lines of inquiry were destroyed. These traditions of investigation and inquiry and research, these were millennia old traditions. These were carried on continuously for thousands of years until about 1000 AD, when the lineages were destroyed. All the universities were destroyed physically, the libraries were burned physically, and the scholars were beheaded in the tens of thousands. So there was no one left to carry on the work. When the texts are destroyed, and the persons who can transmit the texts and explain the texts to students so that you can transmit the tradition and carry it forward, those people were killed off. Then all research, all activity ended around 1000 AD. Today we rediscover the texts, but they are 1000 years old. The research stopped 1000 years ago. But in Europe and other places, the research continued. So now these ancient texts are obsolete. They were the most advanced texts in 1000 AD. No other culture, civilization had that amount of advancement in these fields in 1000 AD. But for 2025, they are obsolete. And from 1000 AD to 2025, that's 1025 years, there's been no research. Do you understand what happened? That's what happened. So it wasn't abandoned. It was destroyed. It's not like Indians decided, you know what, from today onwards, we will not do research. We will just sit down and relax. We are done. It's not like that. That's not what happened. We did not abandon it. It was destroyed. The tradition was destroyed. After independence, we had these mediocre leaders and secular governments who hated everything Indian. That's why it was never taken up again. Kumar Kanishka says, what can be the reason we still lack in making commercial passenger jet planes, which is from India? Lack of vision or just us being complacent? Indians, you give them the opportunity, they will do everything. There are Indians who want to achieve the greatest things in the world. Indians who want to go to space. Indians who want to build jet engines. Indians who want to build rocket engines. Indians want to do everything. The opportunities don't exist. The funding doesn't exist. If the funding exists, there's too much red tape, there's too much corruption, there's too much non-ease of doing business. There's too many rules, regulations, red tape, whatnot. That's why no one's able to do anything in India. And what about DRDO, etc.? What shall I say about DRDO? There's no ambition at the highest levels in government. Why is ISRO in a coma? How many rocket launches in 2025? 4? 5? What? SpaceX launches double that every week. I'm not sure it's double that. Maybe SpaceX, how many launches last year? 200, 250? I don't know. Way more than ISRO. I mean, there's no comparison. What about, we have never even tried to create to develop a passenger jet plane in India. We've never even tried to do that. If individual entrepreneurs had the idea, they never had the funding, they were never allowed to do it, and the government never had any interest in it. Now we are tying up with Sukhoi for the Sukhoi Superjet 100 or whatever, which is a good place to start off. so we can co-develop. It's not co-developing development. We're gonna manufacture it in India, and hopefully, see, the Chinese are so ambitious. They are they've already developed a passenger plane. They are developing reusable rocket engines. They're trying to emulate everything the Americans are doing right now. We are trying to emulate what the West has done 30 years ago. We're always 20, 30, 40 years behind the world. It's a lack of ambition and vision. Yeah, that we are facing. Godliness says it seems the quality and training of the Russian forces are not of good standards. US military operations in Venezuela or Indian operations in India were of much better quality. Why and how is Russia suffering from this problem? I disagree. You are saying because Ukraine is a slow war. Ukraine is a frozen conflict. Because Ukraine, nothing is happening. Because Russia has not overwhelmed Ukraine. Because Russia has not won the Ukraine war so far. That's why you're saying that the training is not good and so on. Slow war, frozen conflict, war of attrition, slow grind. Russia is not able to capture Kiev. Russia is not able to dislodge Zelensky. That's what you're saying. And that's why training is not good. Quality of the material is not good. Look, this is all Western propaganda. Russia is deliberately employing this slow war strategy, the war of attrition strategy, because it is depleting Western resources. It is depleting the Western will to fight. It is actually bolstering Russia's military industrial complex. Russia's economy is doing well. And Russia has always believed in quantity over quality. Quality should be decent, but quantity is what matters. I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. The Americans have extremely complicated, sophisticated, high quality equipment. Naval ships, the Zumwalt class destroyers and all. Got one destroyer will cost $2 billion. For that amount of money, the Chinese will put out 20 ships which will overwhelm the destroyer. So let's not fall for propaganda. I don't agree with this. Kalyan says, okay, Kalyan also wants to disagree with me. All right, mate. Thank you very much for your perspective. Thank you, sir. Thank you for educating me. I am very, very honored, sir. Thank you. Pratham Soni says, habits to develop this year to raise our standards. It depends. It depends on you. What you want to do in life. I would say one habit you should have is to eat clean. Eat food that you have cooked yourself or somebody in your family has cooked. Don't order from outside. That's one habit. Secondly, don't eat too much, obviously, and don't eat too little also. Secondly, exercise every day. Third, spend some time reading, writing every day. It depends. Look, it's not necessary that everybody has to do these things. I would say that you should read at least half an hour every day. You should write at least half an hour every day. But maybe you are in a field or in a domain where you don't need any of this. So I can't really say. But you have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your mind. You have to spend time outdoors. You have to get sunlight. You have to be strong physically, mentally. And whatever field you're in, you have to get better at that progressively, iteratively. Yeah. Aman says, can you please hint ways of real information gathering? Well, about what? About finance, about economics, about geopolitics, about history, about science, what? Each of these domains is different. If you're talking about just general current affairs, news, all that, I would say you should get news from a 360-degree perspective. You should get news from the major established news outlets, BBC, CNN, CCTN, Deutsche Welle, Japan, whatever they have, India, whatever we have here, which is all going to be parroting the Western perspective. Get your news from a 360-degree perspective from India, from Russia, from China, from England, from Germany, from Japan, from the US. Then get news from various social media handles. Then you can use news scraping algorithms and all. So what you have to do is to get a 360-degree perspective. And then once you have all this information on a daily basis, you have to use your own wisdom and experience and judgment to really understand what the truth is, because it's all going to be propaganda from a 360-degree perspective. Social media is going to be propaganda. BBC, CNN, New York Times, Times of India, the Chinese thing, Nikkei, everything's going to have some element of propaganda. So you've got to use your own judgment and wisdom at the end. AKS Baga says Oleg D Telegram post. I don't know why YouTube is telling me to edit. Oleg D. Telegram. I don't have Telegram here, sir. I won't be able to open Telegram. Here. Telegram is something you have on cell phones. I don't have. I suppose it may be, you may be able to open in browsers, but I am not opening a Telegram channel here. So who is Oleg D? Let me find out who is Oleg D. Okay. Oleg D. Oleg Deripaska. Okay. Does he have a Telegram? Telegram. Does he have Telegram? Oh, he has Telegram. Okay, I won't be opening this here because Telegram is, well, you may have stuff that you don't want to see here. Okay. AKS Baga says, how many hours? It's been what? 3 hours, 11 minutes. Okay, I will request everybody to please stop taking super chats now. I will finish the ones that we have now because it's been 3 hours plus. I should end this at a reasonable time. Okay, AKS Baga says, is the US in a second gilded age as 9 out of 10 richest people in the world are from the US? Can Russia ever be as strong as the Soviet Union? The US is it a gilded age? I don't know what you want to call it. You had the gilded age in the early 20th century, right? Where you had tremendous prosperity and so on. If 9 of the 10 richest people in the world are from the US is obviously the wealthiest country in the world. But is everybody wealthy in the US? You also have poverty in the US. You have tremendous inequality in the US. There are a large number of people who have to work 3 jobs to put food on the table. You know, I'm not sure if it's a gilded age, but yeah, there's tremendous wealth in the US, the wealthiest country in the world for sure. Can Russia ever be as strong as the Soviet Union? It can, if it gets things right. It may take time. And it will not be easy, but it can. It can be as strong as the Soviet Union, possibly. Feels Strong Man says someone had to play world police at least until 1990s, and the US did it. World order plus prevent World War III. But after that, they should have simply mind their business, right? No. Why will somebody simply mind their business? If they have all the power in the world, if they are the greatest power, why will they mind their business? You know, the world doesn't operate on the basis of morality. This is how things ought to be. No. Power has a set of rules of its own. The US will not mind its own business. If India were the most powerful nation in the world today, will it mind its own business? It won't. Let's say you have a zoo, open zoo, only one cage, gigantic cage. And you have a rabbit, you have a fox, you have a wolf, you have 5 deer, you have an elephant, you have a tiger. You think a tiger will mind his own business? He simply can't. He's just too powerful. He's going to tell everybody how to live. He's going to eat half of them whenever he feels like. That's how it goes. Surya Bhavan says, how did Russian people and other parts of the world support communism when it wanted to ban religion? Most people are Christians. Didn't Vatican protest? Vatican, by the time the communist revolutions happened, the Vatican had lost much of its power. The Vatican was all powerful in Europe for more than 1,000 years. It was the maker and breaker of kings. Okay, the Vatican was so powerful. But by the time you have the 20th century roll into being, the Vatican was no longer that powerful. If you protest, who cares? If someone protests, who cares? The only thing people care about is what you can do or can't do. If all you can do is protest verbally without taking any real world action, no one cares. Yeah. So how did communism happen? Because communism was portrayed as a great thing and people believed it. And for communist revolutions to succeed, you need charismatic leaders. And you had charismatic leaders who did this. And maybe some of it was engineered. You need a lot of money also. So maybe there are things that happen behind the scenes somehow. Yeah, and see, you're talking about Europe, where you had Christianity, which was the predominant religion. Christianity, do you think it was a great religion? It was a very oppressive religion. It was a very controlling religion. Why is Christianity almost irrelevant now in the West, except for some pockets in the US and so on? Why has Europe given up on Christianity? Because Christianity was very oppressive. It burned millions of women alive. Today, your scholars and academicians will say it was maybe 10, 20,000 women. It was actually millions. They're lying. Christianity was very oppressive. It was very controlling. So when there was a movement to ban all religion and all, people were very happy about it. See, so there are multiple factors why these things succeeded. Naveen says, Saddam's claim, okay, sir, thank you very much for the information. All right. Opposite. Are you saying the Americans released Saddam Hussein's genetic profile? Let me just take a look. Whoops, what happened here? 1 second. Give me a second. Let us try and get to the bottom of this matter. Saddam Hussein DNA results. Okay, that's all fine. DNA identification, claims, context, significance. Saddam Hussein, fast-track DNA tests confirm Saddam's identity. Indian origin, DNA tests. But have the DNA results been publicly results publication? His full genetic profile has never been released to the public. Do you read this, Naveen? This is the point I've been making. Saddam Hussein's full genetic profile has never been released to the public. It has never been released to the public. It has never been released to courts. YouTube, okay. Okay, thank you. Pratik Chenoy says, democracy failing India. Low IQ, caste-obsessed, illiterate people vote for criminally incompetent people, cost caste and freebies, and this keeps repeating every 5 years. We have to abolish caste. This four-pronged caste system that has been imposed upon us and made part of our system, starting from the British occupation period, and now your birth certificate, your school certificates, etc., everything has caste, and you vote on the basis of caste. This is a huge problem for India. The government of India must abolish caste, remove all mentions of caste from all official documents, whether it is birth certificate, death certificate, living certificate, marriage certificate, school living certificate, whatever. Remove any mention of caste. If you want to give your goddamn reservations, give them on the basis of a family's financial status. That's it. Then this entire caste obsession will go away. But politicians will never do this, right? So why will politicians never do it? Because they get votes through these things. And what is the root cause of all this? The so-called system of democracy that we have. And why are Indians low IQ? Because the education system brainwashes them into being low IQ. Your IQ depends on nature plus nurture. Nurture is your education system. If the education system has specific characteristics, you're gonna end up with low IQ people, and so on. So the entire system in India is rigged towards keeping India super mediocre. And a key component of this is what we call the so-called democracy. Yeah, so all these issues. Ronit Sahu says, I am 26. I have achieved nothing in life, big or small. All right. Most people at the age of 26 have not achieved nothing significant in life. So it doesn't mean that you should feel terrible and so on. You're just 26. You're just starting off. You have 74 more years, I would say. Plenty of time. So get going. Get your act together. Decide what you want to achieve in life. Write down your goals for the next 10 years. Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? And then start working on that. And make the goals big so that when you achieve even 1/10 of it, you will feel like you've achieved something. big or small, something at least. Start working on that. Start working on your skills. Start working on the areas where you need to get better. All right, sir, Ronit, it doesn't matter. 26 is just starting off. Don't compare yourself with others. Don't do that. You may have people, your peers, some of them may have got a good job somewhere or something. That's not a big achievement. It's good. I'm not saying it's not good. My point is, don't compare yourself with others. Decide what you want to do in life and get working on it. All right, Ronit, all the best. Be positive and work hard and work smart. Rajat says, when sun turns red giant, outer solar system planets will have life. Can't say. Can't say. When the sun becomes a red giant, it will eventually engulf the earth. It's going to expand. Its outer layers will expand and it will engulf the earth itself. The earth will become part of the sun. It'll go inside the sun. So the earth will essentially be vaporized. Mars will be extremely hot. Jupiter will become a hottish Jupiter. The biochemistry on Titan will change, on Enceladus, Europa, etc. They will change. Maybe they will have liquid oceans instead of subsurface oceans. So maybe some of these moons may have life. What about Uranus, Neptune? Do we have a subsurface ocean on Triton? Let me see. Triton. Do we have a subsurface ocean? Surface ocean. Do we have a subsurface ocean on Triton? Yeah, it does. It likely possesses a global subsurface ocean of liquid water. That's Neptune's largest moon. So will it become liquid? I'm not sure. So, depending on various conditions and all, you may possibly have some form of life in the outer planets or maybe on some of the moons. Okay. Tech Dest says, Punjabis fill Pakistan, but why do many famous Pakistanis have Iranian ancestry? Benazir Bhutto, Muhammad Ali Sekhi, Hassan Jahangir, Nahid Raza, born in Iran. I don't know. Iran is a neighboring country now for Pakistan, right? It used to be our neighboring country. Now Pakistan is in the way. And if it's a neighboring country, you may sometimes marry people from there. So, Murtaza Ali Bhutto, right? He married an Iranian lady. He actually married 2 or 3 ladies. Benazir's dad, right? He married an Iranian lady. That's why Benazir has Iranian Persian ancestry. Her mom was Shia, Nusrat Bhutto. And her dad married a Bangladeshi lady as well. So, look, why do many Pakistanis have Iranian ancestry? Because Iran is a neighboring country and I suppose it's easier to marry, I suppose. Animish Bharati says, could you please share again the name of the maths book series for kids to help them develop love for maths? Especially when the maths teachers at school are not doing a good job. Maths book series for kids. Maths for kids. I don't know any maths for kids books. Even as a kid, I did not read kids books. I read serious math books. If you want to learn math from scratch, I will recommend the Shom series books. Shom's outlines. Okay? You can start with very basic mathematics. Very basic mathematics. Okay, like elementary, not PDF. Okay. I will not. Okay. Review of. So you can study very basic mathematics from here. Elementary mathematics, what kind of sample do we have? Let's see. Do they have a table of contents? Let's see. Show me it. Okay. Fundamentals of arithmetics. Arithmetic. Number. What's a number? Decimal system. Number line. That's ABCs of mathematics. See? Fundamentals of arithmetic and introduction to calculators. Fractions, decimals, percents, signed numbers, positive and negative, integers, numbers. Fundamentals of algebra, laws and operations, equations and formulas. So this is all very basic mathematics. You can start with this book and then you can build upwards from there. So the Shom series of books is the best I have personally used. You can start off, kid who's like 5 years old with this stuff, as long as the kid is reasonably intelligent. Yeah. So that's what I would say. And you can use these books for self-study. You don't need anyone to teach you if you have these books, as long as you are reasonably intelligent. Average, reasonable. I don't know what. Reasonably intelligent. Reddy, always Reddy says, when China we regime change in Bangladesh or Pakistan at 8, 10, 15 or 20 trillion GDP. I have no idea. When can we regime change? Probably 10. Give it 10. Yeah, give it 10. I would say 10. 10 should be sufficient. Yeah. Next, Abhirup Sarkar says, how does one make real friends as an adult? Well, you need to interact with people. So you need to be in situations where you regularly interact with new people. Not just the same crowd, but new people regularly. So in the US, people go to bars and get drunk and talk to people and make friends or whatever, If you want to make friends as an adult, you don't have to go to bars. You should be part of activities, for example, where you get to meet people regularly. Maybe be part of a sports club of some kind. Or maybe as part of your job, if you get to travel or something. So yeah, obviously it's harder to make friends as an adult. Maybe start a podcast. Start a podcast and invite lots of guests, people you don't know. So you have to be creative. You have to find ways of doing it. You have to find ways of giving yourself the maximum possible chance of meeting new people on a regular basis. And then sometimes you'll hit off with somebody and become friends. So the key idea is that you have to meet new people on a regular basis, consistently. Then you can make real friends. So find creative ways of being in this situation where you meet new people regularly, and then you'll make friends. Vidhi Manier says, what is the US up to and what will be the impact on the world? The US is in the process of implementing a new version of the Monroe Doctrine. It is focusing on the Western Hemisphere first, hemispheric defense and hemisphere first, but it's also focusing on the entire world. It is now saying that no extraterritorial power will be allowed to interfere in the Western Hemisphere, and even regional actors will not be allowed to go against the US. The US will be the super cop in the region. So it has now changed the situation in Venezuela. Essentially, for a long time, it will remain the way it is. It now owns the oil of Venezuela. It also owns the gold of Venezuela. And now it's going to focus on other parts of the world, maybe Somaliland, maybe Yemen, maybe Iran, and so on. So the impact of the world, it's going to be pretty destabilizing. King Ritwik says, is James a Kanglu from Superpower Bangladesh? Well, I think James is from the fantastic country of Great Britain, England. Biju Saikia says, Abrahamic religions have always prohibited atheism, but Dharmic religions have never prohibited it. Maybe that's why most atheist Hindus don't really hate Hinduism. Why our religions gave freedom to be atheists? Why did our religion give a certain kind of freedom? Because being free to explore various options is part of our culture. It's part of our religion. Questioning is part of our religion. Inquiry is part of our religion. Read the Nasadiya Sukta, which is the creation hymn of the Rig Veda, the oldest religious text in the world. Would you like to see what the Nasadiya Sukta says? Nasadiya Sukta. Okay, let's go to what Wikipedia has to say about it. Okay, it's called the Hymn of Creation. There was neither non-existence nor existence then, neither the realm of space nor the sky which is beyond. What stirred? Where did it stir? In whose protection? There was neither death nor immortality then, no distinguishing sign of night or day. That one breathed windless by its own impulse. Other than that, there was nothing beyond. Darkness there was at first, but darkness hidden. Without distinctive marks, This all was water, that which becoming by the void was covered, that one by force of heat came into being. Who really knows? Who will here proclaim it? From where was it all produced? From where did this creation come? The gods came afterwards with the creation of this universe. Who then knows from where it has arisen? Whether God's will created it, whether he was mute, perhaps it formed itself, perhaps it did not. The supreme Brahman of the world, all pervasive and all knowing, he indeed knows, but perhaps he himself doesn't know, perhaps no one knows. This is deeply skeptical. This is deeply skeptical. This is deeply agnostic. It raises the question of who created the universe. The gods came into existence with the creation of the universe. Who created them? Do we know? Does the creator know? Perhaps he himself doesn't know. Perhaps we will never know. That is the core of what we call Hinduism. It is the spirit of inquiry. It is the spirit of skepticism. The Rig Veda has an element of deep agnosticism within it. So when that's part of your culture, obviously you don't need to give freedom to be atheist or whatever. You can be what you want. Abhirup Shorkar says, how does one come out of trust issues as an adult? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even know what trust issues are. Means you are unable to trust people. Look, I don't know about this. This is something that's like beyond my skill set or my realm of knowledge. Trust issues and all. Maybe you should consult a specialist, a professional about this. I have no idea. Sorry. It's not part of my experience, trust issues or whatever. So can't say. Very sorry. All the best. Please consult somebody who actually is a professional in this. Then you may be able to get the answers, sir. Kiki Sushant. Thank you very much, Kiki Sushant ji. I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Achintya Anand says, Mount Mandar and oldest temple is in Bihar. Okay. What is Mount Mandar? I've never heard of it. What is Mount Mandar? Mandara. Okay. The mountain that is the churning road used in Samudra Manthan. I see. And the oldest. Okay. Thank you for this piece of information. Very interesting. I'll look into it later. Okay. Sam the Gamer says, medicine wishes go well, got a fever, need blessings. Get well, sir. You got a fever? Well, take care of your health, get some rest, take the medicines that you need to take, and get well at the earliest. All the best. Do well and get well soon. Looking forward to seeing you in the future. Okay? All the best. Ankur Saraf. Thank you very much. Ankur Sarafji. Cashflow Circus says, your thoughts on the Jewish left Tahor clan and its controversies. People who have escaped the clan have spoken about their unscrupulous activities. I have never heard of the left Tahor clan until today. So I have no thoughts about it. I don't know what it is. What is the left Tahor clan? Let's quickly Google this. Left Tahor clan. Lev Tahor clan. Ultra-Orthodox Jewish cult founded in Israel by Shlomo Helbrands in 1988. And so on. Okay, I am not aware of this. This is the first time I'm hearing of it, so I don't have any thoughts about it at this point in time. I'll look into it. King Ritwik says, do you think Kim Il-sung did the right thing by closing off North Korea? Because then only USA cannot do regime change. He saw the problem of democracy. Well, right thing, wrong thing, there's no right or wrong. There are different ways. Each ways has some trade-off. In some things, you are exposed to more risk, but you get more benefits too, potentially. In other ways, you are exposed to less risk, but then you're closed off. So I don't know what's right, what's wrong. Is it good for the people of North Korea? Maybe, maybe not. We are told, especially the Western media says that the people of North Korea are very badly repressed. There is famine, whatnot. Is it true? Is it not? I have no idea. But being closed off, being isolated from the world, insulated, it's not a good thing. Because I know that in the 1980s, until the 1980s, India was like that. When I was a little kid, India was closed off from the rest of the world. There was one TV channel that broadcast in the evening for 2 3 hours. They showed news twice, once in Hindi, once in English, on Doordarshan. And the news was what? So and so minister said so and so thing today. So and so minister cut the ribbon for so and so inauguration today. It's all about what ministers said. You never got to know what was happening outside of the country. So India was actually like North Korea. You may not believe it today. India has changed so much. That's how our leaders kept this country. Do you think it's a good thing to be completely isolated like that, insulated from the rest of the world? It's terrible. But yeah, if you become an open country, obviously there is more chance of regime change and all, but there are ways of preventing that also. So you can be a non-insular nation without having to be democratic. I mean, look at the Gulf nations. Do you see any democracy there? But they are not closed off. There are various ways of doing things. Vamsi B says, if US hegemony were to diminish, how due to what it would happen? If other nations become more powerful, like way more powerful, then US hegemony could diminish. So for that, nations like China, Russia, India would need to be more powerful. Or maybe one of these nations would have to be way more powerful. So relatively, the US strength will then diminish, and then US hegemony will also diminish. Shriya Srivastav says, to keep our dharmic civilization alive, what should we do? Which key organization to support with money or time? I see youth is influenced without any civilizational awareness. Look, I will not recommend any organizations here. I'm not doing that. But how can individuals keep the dharmic civilization alive? By practicing dharmic practices, by continuing the traditions of your ancestors. Don't let those traditions die. Don't let the culture die. Visit your local temples. You don't have to go to a big temple where there's a big queue every day. Visit your local temples. Support the local religious activities. Teach your kids the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, right? Whatever specific practices your family lineage has been practicing, keep those alive. Meet like-minded people. There's so much you can do, right? I will not talk about which organization to support with money or time. Support your local temple with some money. Give 100 rupees a month. That's better than 0 rupees a month. If you can give more, great. Make sure the temple's funds are not stolen by the government. If that's the kind of temple it is, then better not to give money in the hundi. Maybe give it in the priest's pocket or whatever. So there are various ways of doing it. If you are a wealthy person, build new temples. There's plenty that can be done without giving money to some organization. And if there is some organization that you are fond of, you can certainly support that organization with money or time. My point is, I will not here publicly say support this or that organization, because 100 haters will crop up then. That why didn't you support my organization, my favorite organization? So I'm not going to do that here. King Ritwik says, I have a dream to visit all the great temples of our country. I'm from Odisha, so I regularly visit Puri Jagannath. Suggest me all the great temples. Well, Puri Jagannath Puri, right? So that is a Vaishnava temple, obviously. Look, there are so many great temples across the country. There are Vaishnava temples, there are Shaiva temples, there are Shakti temples. There's a whole list of Jyotirlingas, right? The Jyotirlingas, which are Shaivite temples. There are many great Vaishnava temples in the country. I don't remember all the great temples. Look, there's obviously, if you ask me, I'll say Somnath, right? The great temple of Somnath, the great Ram Mandir, obviously. I won't be able to tell you all the temples. You just do a Google search, right? You'll find all the major temples in India. Tirupati, Shri Padmanabha Swami temple. There are so many temples. So many of the great temples that we have still standing today are in the southern part of India. So you can make a list of the great temples in southern India. You can make a list of the great Jyotirlingas. One or two of these are in Pakistan today, Hinglaj Mata, etc. But, Shakti Peethas and so on. So yeah, do a Google search, you'll get all the temples. Fast Snail says, should countries move away from oil dependency in the long run? Well, sure, but what do you move towards? If you want to, let's say you want to move towards nuclear energy, but you can't have a nuclear reactor in a motorcycle, right? Or in a four-wheeler. You can't. So we'll need, or let's say you move towards solar, but can solar power reliably power two-wheelers and four-wheelers and so on? So we're gonna have to eventually find a better source of energy. But right now we are dependent on oil. Ideally, we should all move away from oil dependency so that we don't pollute the environment so much and all. But we're gonna have to make technological breakthroughs for that to happen. But yes, ideally this should happen, no question. Vinay says, should I build a life in the US after my undergraduate degree in medical engineering? As I like it here despite the challenges, is it selfish? It's not selfish. And if it is selfish, so what? So what? Why should you not be selfish? I think I would say do whatever is best for yourself. If you are a young person, be selfish. It is important for young people to be selfish at least until the age of 40. Focus on yourself, focus on your career, focus on earning wealth, focus on acquiring skills, focus on acquiring positive, beneficial experiences. Focus on yourself at least until the age of 40. Be completely selfish until the age of 40. Then at the age of 40 or 45, reconsider. Think about it. Have I experienced enough? Have I enjoyed life enough? Do I have enough wealth? Do I now maybe want to serve my nation, my civilization? If at the age of 40, 45, you decide that now it's a time, then you can think of reinvesting some of the money back in India. At the age of 20, 25, you have no money, first of all. So how will you serve India, even if you want to? You can't serve society without money. So I would say, do whatever is best for yourself. Be selfish, at least until the age of 40. Okay, Vinay, all the best. Raj says, studying is vital for exams, yet I deviate after 2 hours. Why does the brain resist focus, and how can students rebuild attention scientifically? Your brain resists focus because studying is extremely boring. Your brain resists focus because the education system is mediocre, and there are better ways of studying and better curriculums. So what can you do about this? How can you retain attention and so on? Well, there is something called interval training in exercise. In interval training, it's a form of cardio. So you sprint for 30 seconds, sprint like at the highest intensity for 30 seconds. Then you walk at a very moderate pace for like 3 minutes. Then you once again sprint very intensely at the highest intensity for 30 seconds. Then you walk moderate pace for 3 minutes. Or you can switch up, maybe 20 seconds, 4 minutes, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever. But that's what you do. So if your brain resists focus, do your studying in sprints. Study for 20 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. Just walk around, or do some push-ups, or do some squats. Do something that is completely non-mental for 5 minutes. Then come back, study for 20 minutes, then again take a 5-minute break. And do that periodization for, let's say, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Then take a 1-hour break or 2-hour break. Go watch a movie, do something. Then return and do another 3-hour stint like this. So you have to be creative in this. Yeah? You have to shock the brain into different patterns. Try something creative like that, right? All the best. Ankita Ji says, some experts say colonization has always been there, never gone really. After actual colonization, there is neo-colonization. Petrodollar control, next is legitimization of digital currency, possibly, stable coins and so on. What's my opinion? Oh, absolutely. Colonization has never disappeared. There is neocolonization. Take the example of Africa. After the First and Second World Wars, around that period, the Western nations supposedly moved out from Africa. There is this famous Italian indie movie called Africa Addio. It's pretty hard to watch at times because of the scenes and all, but I will recommend it to those who are interested. Africa Addio. So this was from 1966. And Africa Addio means goodbye Africa, which means the Europeans are leaving Africa. So the message that's being sent indirectly to the world is that we left Africa by the 1960s. We left Africa alone, and African countries became independent. And if Africa is in a mess today, it is their fault. It's not our fault. But the truth is that the European powers left Africa physically. Boots were taken off the ground, but they continued controlling Africa indirectly by funding dictators, by cultivating dictatorships in all the countries they had left. So they became patrons of the dictators who became clients. And they would give the dictators whatever they wanted, money, etc. And the dictators would allow the Europeans to indirectly plunder the countries. So that's neocolonization of Africa. When it comes to other countries like Japan and so on, these are still occupied by the West. So there is still colonization. Then there is vassalhood, which is indirect colonization, and so on. Then there is the petrodollar situation, which allows the US to control the entire world's economy. They also control SWIFT, by which they control countries. If they cut you off from SWIFT, you are cut off from the rest of the world. Then you will have digital currency. So colonization has always been there. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Ankitaji. Colonization has never gone. The world is still run through an imperial system. It's just called the rules-based world order or whatever it is. But it's, at the end of the day, we are ruled by an empire, which is the American empire, which is nothing but a reincarnation or a continuation of the British Empire. But today we are told that it's a democratic world, free and fair world, and so on, which is an illusion. So you are absolutely right. Ikes Bagga says, are your geopolitical sources from France? Which geopolitical sources from France? I'm not sure which sources I have from France. Do I have sources from France? What's a geopolitical source? You mean source of news or source of something else? I'm not sure what you're asking, sir. Could you please be more clear? I'm really not sure. I don't have any sources in France as such. Probably the answer is no, but I'm not very clear about what you're asking. Ikes Baga says, should India have special economic zones like China? That's a great idea. That's a great idea. The government should consider this. We have something called Gift City in Gujarat somewhere, right? That's a special economic zone. Hong Kong used to be a special economic zone of China. Why can't India have such zones where you have a different set of rules, where you have zero red tape, where you have maybe a laissez-faire economy? That's a great idea, actually. We should have these in every state to kickstart, jumpstart the economy in various parts of India. That's a great idea. I don't know why these things are not implemented. I just don't get it. Krishnant Bordoloy says, you think one day the US will come after India properly? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not. Depending on how India behaves, on how India plays the game. Unknown says, PC with Sanjeev Sanyal, Ruchir Sharma, Surya Kane. PC, podcast. Oh, you're recommending podcasts. Good recommendations. Thank you. Ravi Mohan says, Islamic Moroccan architecture of Spain is seen as one of the influential medieval styles by architects like Rafael Moneo and Juhani Palasma, Finnish. Yet many in the West show little interest in studying our ancient Indian architecture. See, India is seen as a culture that was defeated. And India is resurgent today. And they hate it. So there is this very strong sense of Hindu phobia, etc., in India, across the world. And there is this campaign across the world to deny the Indian origins of everything, of anything, and to just erase India out of any discussion. Right? So, and Indians themselves are like brown coolies, brown sepoys. Brown coolie apparently is a racist term. That's what Veerdas once claimed. Anyway, forget about Veerdas. So Indians themselves try to play down the importance of India. So my point is, who cares what the West does? Why don't our academics, our researchers start studying Indian architectural styles and writing books about them, writing research papers about them? Our own goddamned economics are not academics are not interested at all in these things. We have to start with ourselves from our universities. Look at the kind of rotten research that comes out of our universities, so-called research. Our own researchers have zero interest. They're all left loonies. Our humanities departments are leftist snake pits. That's the problem. So when your country, when India itself doesn't produce any research about Indian architecture, Indian history, Indian architectural styles, and so on, why will the rest of the world bother? That's the problem. Let's not blame the rest of the world. Our own academics are a serious problem. Why do we keep paying them from our taxpayer money when they are doing nothing to take our nation's interest forward? I don't get it. Why is the government of India still funding these third-rate people? Why aren't we reforming the education system? All right. Mahendra Singh Jadon says, can you suggest a broad roadmap, sources to educate myself about history and geopolitics without being overwhelmed by it? I have a growing curiosity for it. Well, when you say history, what are you talking about? Are you talking about Indian history? Are you talking about world history? What are you talking about, sir? If you're talking about world history, well, that's a massive topic. I am still learning world history. Somebody yesterday asked me about the Marshall Plan. I could not remember what the Marshall Plan was all about, the details, the specifics. You see? Of course, I've read the Marshall Plan, read about it, but I could not recall the specifics at the time. So, history, world history is a vast topic. Different regions of the world, different eras, time periods. If you want to study, see, you can't understand geopolitics without understanding history. And to understand geopolitics, you have to understand world history. How will you understand world history? You just start from broad strokes and then dive down into more specific details. Broad roadmap. The broad roadmap is first acquaint yourself with world history, high level world history. Study about Europe, study about India, about China, about Persia, Greece, essentially the Americas, all of it essentially. Get a decent but not detailed, not deep, broad understanding of world history. That will hopefully give you some information. Then you can start diving deep into specific parts of world history that you find more interesting and so on. It takes time. You see, it will take you at least a decade. I will not lie to you and so that you can get an understanding in 6 months. I started studying history, reading history out of my own curiosity when I was like 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old. Yeah. It's been a long time. I'm still learning. So, if you want one recommendation, read The History of Civilization by Will Durant. Let me show this on the screen. History of Civilization. The Story of Civilization by Will and Ariel Durant. 11-volume set of books. It will take you maybe 2-3 years to read this. You read that, you get a solid foundation. All right, sir, all the best. Ankur Saraf, credit of Indian nukes. Atalji or Indiraji? Look, Indiraji, under her leadership, we tested a nuclear weapon in 1974. Then what did we do? We went to sleep. If we tested a weapon in 1974, why didn't we become a nuclear power? Because Indiraji said that we have only done this for demonstration purposes. Okay. Now we will put it on the shelf and forget about it. Atalji tested 5 nukes and then operationalized the nuclear deterrent. Who should we give credit to? Please tell me. I would give it to Atalji. Uh, Anshu Jain says, how much realistic chance is there of China attacking and conquering Taiwan in 2027? 50-50. Maybe 50-50. Anirudh says, should India wage war and defeat a bigger nation, like how Japan defeated Russia, to cement respect for itself among the world order? I don't give a damn what respect. Let the whole world disrespect my country. I don't care. I care about my country's power. Let them dislike me, but they should be scared of me. So why should you fight a war to gain respect? You fight a war for very specific, concrete political and military objectives. You don't fight a war for respect. Okay. And today, the next 20 years, I don't want any war. I want economic growth. So ideally, we should not do any of that. Okay, we have to be realistic. Okay. Rush God says, how would Chanakya free temples? Chanakya would rule the country and he will write the laws that temples should be free. That's what he would do. He would first take power. He would first grab power. If you want to free temples, you have to have power, which means you have to first take power. And then you write the laws. That's how you free temples. That's how Chanakya would do it. And that brings me finally to the end of today's live stream. Okay. 3 hours, 57 minutes. That's a long live stream. Okay, people, I'm going to end it over here. It is what time? It's almost 12 p.m. here in India. So thank you so much, everybody. It was real fun. A lot of questions, wide variety of questions. Enjoyed taking them all. Thank you very much, everyone. I will see you in next week's live streams. We're going to continue this wonderful interaction that we have. I look forward to seeing you in next week's live streams. Keep learning, keep raising your standards, keep asking questions. I'll see you very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.